winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Do you guys know just how much we're winning? We're winning so greatly that Slutty Milk is getting fundraising texts he didn't even know he voted for. From phone number plus 1760 582 3152. That is plus 1-760 58231. Wow, I just forgot how to read off a phone number. Plus 1-760 582 3152. Says, have I told you about my donkey named Barack? It started on a cattle ranch outside of Abilene, maybe? Outside of Ab. We live in the Big 2-6, folks. This is the way political campaigning is done now. Have I told you about my donkey named Barack? I gotta tell you, I'm gonna open that text. I don't usually open them. I usually just, I always think of, like, it'd be so much fun to do the thing where you sit there and you, like, fuck with the person or whatever, but I would love to be able to sit down and do something like that, but I don't have the creative juices for it. But that right there, have I told you about my donkey named Barack? That's going to get me to open that text and read that message. What a hook. Incredible. Incredible, folks. This is what it's like living in the golden age of my president, Mr. Donald John Trump. Have you heard of him? Straight Buster says, have you received the text, Anon? No. I want to be one. I want to sign up. Hey, Slutty Milk, where do I sign up to get texts like that? I want to wake up to those sorts of things. Zoomer Dylan says, I have not seen the text. Slutty Milk is a special one. You know, he's been graced by our president to receive the best fundraising texts. Homeless Nomad says, I get texts from the Dems which start, hey, Jazzman. I tell them I'd rather stick a cactus up my urethra than vote blue, then block the numbers. Oh, Patriot. Beau French. I could see, that could totally be a Beau French sort of like campaign fundraising sort of text. I would totally see that. I mean, you get a little kind of a peek behind the curtain. Like this is how the game works. People put together these lists, these mailing lists, and then they sell them to each other, trade them with each other, and each mailing list has or texting list or whatever is sorted by demographics and categorized by tendencies based on age and race and what would you say, like financial status, economic status, and then they just try to tailor a message and try to get it in front of them in the best way that they can, and it's a race to see who's going to get the most people to turn out. So elections really are just, they kind of come down to a science. Melon, that one, it's reading it. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna have to share the screen here. So, give me a second here. All right. So, first of all, breaking news: we got tooth number 1 like a week ago, and tooth number 2. He was eating a piece of bread today, and then all of a sudden he had a tooth in his bread, and he had to pull the tooth out. So we're going to get another visit tonight from the Tooth Fairy. Unfortunately, Gaga has left, so the Gaga inflation is going to go away. See, my president has created deflation in at least one market, the Tooth Fairy market. The value of a tooth is going to drop precipitously. He doesn't know that yet. 4 days ago, max. Yeah. He went from like teeth are just fine to has a loose tooth to has lost 2 of them over the course of like 7 to 10 days, something like that. So So this, I had to show you this because then this came in. For crying out loud. Jeff with $10.
Another tooth.
Another tooth. So true. Another tooth. So there, Jeff is paying the tooth fairy, the tooth fairy toll, tooth fairy dues tonight. Thank you, Jeff. And then let me play that melon one here one more time. There's a delay. There's a long delay. It's waiting. Supposedly it's going to. Well, maybe it won't. He said, look into mesh/LoRa radios, Patriots. They will never stop me from typing slurs on the airwaves. Yeah, Melon has been keeping us apprised of this particular industry, and I actually have a little bit of familiarity with it myself, but it also is way over my head from a technical standpoint. So the like mesh networks and sorts of off-grid communications, that industry is booming, and there's a lot of very interesting anons who are creating interesting technological applications through them that could have a lot of relevance for us. He says it's not that confusing once you have one, and they're as cheap as like $40. Yeah, and so then it's one thing. Yeah, everyone is feeling the oh no, we're living through a civilizational collapse sort of sense, and that's true. We are living through a civilizational collapse, but the thing that people don't pay as much attention to is we're also living through a civilizational emergence, and that civilizational emergence is emerging in a lot of ways directly counter to or in the negative space of the old one. So you have like you think of this old entity that occupies this certain space, and then there's voids, there's negative space where it does not occupy. Well, that's where a countervailing force would emerge. So let me fix this real quick before this runs away from me and I lose track of what's going on. By the way, 5 beers were purchased through Buy Me a Coffee by Jason. And he said that the tips.kingpill.com link was giving him issues. It could be that you have a... thank you, Emperor Trades. It could be that you are going to the old Streamlabs site. You might have to clear your cookies or your cache or whatever it is, and then update. So you make sure you're going to the Ko-fi link. Okay. There we go. That's what I sound like when I count to myself in my head. So the new emergent empire, the civilizational birth process that's happening, exists in a lot of ways in that negative space that the other one doesn't occupy. Just kind of obviously, it's like you gotta grow up where you can, like a plant growing up around through a crack in a sidewalk. So the character of the old reality was very expansive and global, and which has this broad smothering effect. It has a flattening effect, so it ends up becoming very, very suppressive, and it's essentially smothering the life. This is why it's the spirit of the smothering mother. It's smothering the life out of the children in her care. She's smothering them to death because she's trying so hard to protect them from all bad things that she ultimately just kills them. And so it's kind of like holding a balloon underwater, have you ever tried to hold a basketball underwater? You try to press it down, and the further you press it down, the harder it gets. And if you let go of it, you launch it up in the air. That's kind of what's happening right now. And where the new civilization is emerging is often in these voids, in the places where people aren't looking. And so people are sensing this. They have this fear of a collapse that's going to happen. There's going to be a complete breakdown on all of the systems and technologies and networks and tools that we've used to build our civilization up. And depending on how far, if you think of this as like scaffolding that's being built up, well, if only like one layer of the scaffolding drops, but then it holds, then you're like, okay, we're not too bad. But if you have a whole bunch of layers of the scaffolding all come down all at the same time, that's really, really bad. So you can think of this as like parallel scaffoldings being built, and one has been built way up here. This is the old world, the old world, European-centric, globalist, free trade, free market. That whole world has built its artifices all the way up, but they're starting to crumble. And as they're coming on the way down, there's this new scaffolding that's being built alongside of it, and they're going to meet at some point. Now, the goal is for this process to make sure that they're equally moving. They're moving about the same speed as they pass each other. Because like the faster they're moving relative to one another when they pass each other, the more jarring and disruptive and frankly deadly the transition will be. But if you can draw that process out and slow the collapse of one as you slowly accelerate the rise of the other, they spend more time parallel to each other, which makes it easier to make the transition over. So when Trump talked about how he wants all of the especially the data centers, but a lot of the new construction that's being built, all the big manufacturing and industrial warehouses and stuff that are being constructed, when that's happening, he's incentivizing them to build their own energy production capacity alongside it and be able to generate energy behind the meter. What this ultimately does is it actually decentralizes the grid. So now if you have what would have previously caused a grid collapse, if you can robustify it and decentralize it that way, you can the grids that have collapsed, you can sort of isolate those nodes from the other nodes, and you have spare capacity and stuff that you can scale up and down. This is what Texas has done with the electric grid here, using Bitcoin mining. So the Bitcoin miners create the market demand for increased energy output. But they can dial up and down their activities really, really, really slow, really quickly. It doesn't take them anything at all to just go, okay, pull the mining way back. So if there's a huge demand on the system, then they just pull back, wait, and then as soon as that demand goes away, then they fill up that excess capacity again. When you combine these things together, you can essentially not just stave off a grid collapse, but make it even harder for the grid to ever collapse. So this is like something that's being built outside sort of the standard system, the standard way things are done. And you add small modular nuclear reactors to that, and that becomes even more possible. And then you take the small modular nuclear reactors, and like the stories I showed you yesterday of the guys who are working on being able to create synthetic, like synthetic oil through the air. Putting all of these things together and then using Bitcoin mining to robustify the grid, like Texas has, doing that in as many places as possible, increasing the capacity and putting a bunch of it behind the meter. You could see how you just put a few of these ideas together and like kaboom. But the question is, do we have the time to get all of that done before the sudden unexpected black swan event that actually collapses the grid? So you're running these two timelines in parallel to each other. And the conclusion, like the easiest baseline conclusion, is we need to do whatever we can to fast track this alternate system as fast as possible. So then things like off-grid communications like that, like the mesh network stuff that Mellon's talking about, that becomes what the electric, so like the grid going down would have major disruptive effects on communication capacity itself. But you think about what the grid going down means, and then imagine transposing that concept to communication networks and how expansively connected we are to each other, and what it would be like to suddenly not be able to engage in that sort of communication and commerce and having any idea of what's happening around the corner. We've taken a lot of this stuff for granted because it's always been there. And so having a network of guys who are ahead of the curve on this, exploring the decentralized off-grid sort of mesh network kind of things. And the military is way, way, way ahead on this. I know this from very personal experience. But they're also trying to drive ahead too. So there's great commercial opportunities with this sort of stuff, or even just within your own network of friends, family, being able to have access to, there's different layers of people. There's the people who are directly into it. Then there's the people who have a connection to the people who are directly into it, and then expanding out from there. So these are the sorts of things that are worth investing time and energy and money into right now. Jeff!
Post-libertarian is living in Trumpistan, but it's not in your head. Golden Age mindset maxing.
Yes! We are living in Trumpistan, but not in our head. Thank you, Jeff, for the $47. Golden Age mindset maxing. Remember, it can only good happen. All right, now, hold on, I gotta find my mouse. Where'd it go? All right. So Trump bans birthright citizenship and birth tourism. We've been down this road before, right? Well, not so fast. They're evolving. They're learning. It's almost like they had a sort of, they had the course of action they wanted to take, but then if that didn't work, then they had another course of action prepared. It's not like when this thing doesn't work, we're just going to stop and give up. You try this thing, that doesn't work, so then you go try the next thing, and that doesn't work, and then it might be prudent to think about what those next things will be and prepare for them ahead of time. But the problem is we don't have a word. We don't have a word that describes this process of thinking of alternate possibilities and making preparations for which order to do these things in and how to go about doing them. If only someone would invent a word to describe that, because then that's the thing that we could trust in. We could trust that thing that describes this process of developing contingencies. Maybe that's something that you guys can work on. So they're going at this again from a different angle now, using the trust the contingencies. Yeah. Lord Breezy says every SCOTUS decision will literally tell you how to get your way. Yes. Because this is the thing about SCOTUS, is SCOTUS wants to preserve itself as well. So SCOTUS is actually not invested in the complete collapse of the civilization, but it's also kind of pot committed. So they're dealing with a pretty thin hand themselves, but as we've seen already, they're giving the administration, they're guiding the administration through effectuating these things. Now, on one hand, you could call this extend to pretend, like they're trying to drag it out so that they can get rid of him, which is true. There is a sincere motivation to just drag it out until you get rid of him. But what happens if you don't get rid of him? Then all of that dragging it out was actually just giving him ground. And you just conceded ground. So clearly this is set up for the midterms. Every so often, we have these things called elections. And these elections bear results. The question is, how real are they? And even if you can get to how real are they, the next best question would be how reliable are they? But we can debate those things all we want. The fact of the matter is, they're going to keep happening. They're not just going to stop. Everyone would lose their mind if they stopped. And the goal here is to keep advancing forward. Keep a floor on the system. And let the old one, you have to accelerate the old one's collapse, but not so much that it collapses too fast, while you're also stepping on the gas for the new one, but not so fast that you spin out of control. It's a very delicate balancing game. So the elections are going to keep happening. We're going to keep having elections. And every single election is going to have different implications. But for the time being, they're going to be very important. You have to have a pragmatic and agile mindset about these things. So what the president has done here is created two new primary vectors for continuing to attack the problem of illicit immigration in the country to the extent that he can. He doesn't have Congress on his side yet. People are like, oh, well, he's had all three branches. You fucking retards. Of course he hasn't. He obviously does not have a majority in the Senate. And he probably doesn't have a majority in the House. Like, if the rubber really had to meet the road, there's going to be people in his own party who are going to peel off from that because they don't have the stones to go through with it. So the only available solutions are ones that the executive can pursue self-containedly. And then it's up to the executive being able to maximize its own enforcement. I'm speaking of the executive as a body itself. The question of enforcement is another thing, but in order to get to the question of enforcement, you have to first go through these steps to get there. So the president has issued these two executive orders. One of them bans birthright citizenship and the other one bans birth tourism. And they did this specifically pursuant to the Supreme Court ruling against them in Barbara, the case recently regarding birthright citizenship. They're continuing to say this is an atrocity, but we're bound to what the Supreme Court has said, because in order for them to actually maximize enforcement of any policy, they cannot be seen as directly flouting the Supreme Court. That's a failed strategy right now, because he has a fake majority. They will impeach him in a minute. So you have to be pragmatic about this. What can you accomplish? Well, you can issue powerful executive orders that are directly tailored to the Supreme Court, so optimized for succeeding in the judiciary, because you're going to continue having to deal with the judiciary. It's not going away yet. Getting rid of the judiciary is a win condition. In other words, when you win, it's conditional on you winning. And even then, you're not going to get rid of the judiciary. Do you even understand what a judiciary is? You can replace it, but the only way that replacing it works is if people believe in it, because that's all a judiciary is. A bunch of experts who are deferred to make decisions. This is older than Western civilization. Judiciaries aren't going away. So whatever the executive does, it has to do in concert with the judiciary. Now, he could say, you guys are out of your minds. You guys are treasonous. This is absurd. And we're going to keep revisiting this matter. We're going to keep doing this, because this is what people in a civilization do. By definition, the people who live in a civilization are the ones who don't decide they just want to burn everything down. This is like a prerequisite for being in a civilization is I am the person who is not going to decide I don't like how things are and I'm going to go burn things down. Civilization is defined as the thing that is carved off from those people. What are we doing in a civilization? We're isolating ourselves from the people who want to burn everything down. So, becoming one of the people who want to burn everything down is definitionally anti-civilizational. You are an enemy of civilization. The executive is going to continue. They've made it very clear. They're not backing down on this issue. They're going to continue pressing forward on it. And now they actually have the imprimatur of legitimacy here because of some of the stuff the Supreme Court said. So they've moved the ball forward. Now it's up to enforcement. And how do you ensure enforcement? Maintaining continuity of government. Which brings you back to the midterms. Now, the midterms don't happen in a vacuum. You're not just judging the popularity of the Republican Party. You're not just judging the popularity of Trump. You're also judging the credibility and popularity of the alternatives. And it's not the alternatives of people, and you're not judging this among the people who are not going to vote. You're judging this among the people who are going to vote. So when you say, oh, I was a 3-time Trump voter and I'm so angry about how he's sucking off Bibi Netanyahu's cock every day and I'm not going to vote for him again. Okay, so remove you from the column of who's going to vote. You're out of that column. How many people are leaving the column of not going to vote for Democrats? I'm going to tell you a hell of a lot. Many of them are just going to opt out. I expect that turnout among Democrats is going to be low. Turnout among Republicans is probably going to be standard to high. And the whole nation is not, a sample of the whole nation is not relevant here. It's a sample of the particular most important key elections. And we're getting signals on what those are going to look like. There are some negative signals for Republicans, broadly speaking. But there are a hell of a lot of negative signals for Democrats. They are in dire, dire straits. They're desperate for money. What do they need? How do they get money? By making a compelling case that they're going to be worth it. And how are they making a compelling case that they're going to be worth it? There's a generational thing that's happening in the Democrat Party as well. And the younger up-and-coming people are either extraordinarily unimpressive or they are open communists, racial minority communists. And when you're a serious person who is probably like a political normie but wields a ton of capital, you're like, I'm going to need to protect my investment if I'm going to invest in that, particularly because I know if it goes bad, there's a very good chance that I'm going to get dragged out and be the subject of a Trump Truth Social post. And maybe he'll just decide to start investigating me. This is just one of many, many factors. I have been on the record for over a year that the Republicans are not just going to not lose in the midterms. They're going to pick up seats in the midterms. And I continue to abide by this. Here's a very funny example of the current state of the libs. So you remember Caitlin Collins? She's the like Scott Presler in drag. Actually, maybe even more masculine than Scott Presler. Looks like his twin sister, who's more masculine than he is. For CNN. She's the one who, at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Trump said that he made a joke that basically said he thought it was her, but it was actually Dylan Mulvaney on the Bud Light ads. So he compared her to a very prominent tranny. This is elite tier game. Telling a woman, like complimenting her, complimenting a lib female on looking like a tranny. No, you're so beautiful. You're so impressive. I just can't stop looking at you. Because you This is like instant Foyd meltdown internally. Like the brain is just short circuits. I guarantee you, ever since he said that, she's been thinking about it nonstop. It is constantly there. She is working hard to try to push it out of her brain. But it's always there, just eating at her. She hasn't stopped thinking about him since he said it. So this picture drops on the timeline yesterday, along with a few others. But there's layers to this one now. So this picture here that went majorly, different variations of this. Another one had like, she had her dress was like cut off pretty short up her thigh. And multiple different variations of this went around. And definitely went super viral enough that she's well aware of it, particularly because this is something that's been on her mind anyways, as evidenced by the fact that she went out and did this photo shoot. And this is an edited picture from the actual photo shoot. So this is the edit. Here's the actual photo shoot. That's a nice one. That's not bad. Smile looks a little fake, but that's not too bad. There's the photo that was used as the inspiration for the AI one. There's the last one there. So this photo here, she goes and has her friend do a how we glow thing. This is like she needed this. She needed to go out and do this and like prove, no, actually, look, I'm actually hot. See how hot and feminine I am? And then the internet proceeds to take her photos and make them glow up even hotter. So we need to say a prayer for Caitlin Collins. She is going through it right now. Because she went and did her big photo shoot, and then the internet improved her photo shoot. And now the contrast is going to exist out there forever. This woman may have if she doesn't have like a total and complete meltdown, then this is gonna leave her a changed person. She is going to abandon her past ways. This is what we pray for. We pray that this just rattles her out of her complacency, and she goes and finds a man and disappears into motherhood. Thick Collins. You see the things that my president is doing to the libs. She's TV news pretty, yeah. So here we go. Stephen Miller announces President Trump is hereby banning birth tourism, a loophole that exploits birthright citizenship for foreigners. So you know that Stephen Miller wasn't going to miss an event like this. I'm sure he's been running point on this.
Includes, for example, alien enemies of the United States, members of foreign terrorist organizations, and large categories of people who lobby and act on behalf of foreign governments. And so with taking this action, it ensures that large numbers of people who wrongly would be getting birthright citizenship will no longer be eligible for those benefits. The second action that he's taking, which is especially historic, is for the first time ever in American history to ban birth tourism. So I want you to really let that sink in. This has been something that people have talked about not only for years, but for decades. The idea that people come here pretending to be a tourist, pretending to be a visitor, saying they want to go to Disneyland, they want to go visit a monument or go to a national park, but the real reason they're here is to have a child, to make that child an automatic citizen, leave our country, and then have a U.S. citizen child. It gives them access under this broken system to welfare benefits, ultimately to the voting booth, and all the other rights and privileges that belong solely to Americans. So that practice of birth tourism is, as of the signing of this order, hereby banned. And what that means is that no one in the world is any more allowed to obtain a visa for this fraudulent purpose. It is probably, and President Trump has done many historic things on immigration, too many till this now, sealed the southern border shut, record deportations, record integrity, stopping foreign terrorist entry, record reduction in drug seizures, dismantling criminal cartels, dismantling the gangs, right? Everything he's done that has been so unprecedented. I would put this in the top 3 in terms of importance because it ends what has been one of the gravest and most egregious abuses of the American system, and it keeps American citizenship sacred.
Thank you. Okay.
Living Dead, thank you. You put perfect words to it. Miller will never miss an opportunity to subtly disparage vast swaths of people who are also too dumb to pick up on the fact that he's doing it. He's the greatest. Yes, yes. Mr. Seuss said, always riffing Miller. No script Miller, they call him. You notice that. This man never speaks from prepared remarks. It is always straight from the big shiny dome. Gangbangers could be here, he thought. The gangbangers. I hate gangbangers. Here's his comments on on birth tourism, and I'm going to go into a little bit of the details of what the executive orders actually say here in just a moment.
Yes, for those of you who want to do your research on this, Section 215A of the Immigration and Nationality Act gives the president this authority. 215A of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Very rarely used, probably one of the strongest laws in the entire federal code, gives him this power. And that's not the only.
He's going to tell you exactly what code it is. Very rarely used. This is a consistent pattern we've seen for the last 20 months. Finding obscure, never-before-used laws, which have, obviously, if it's obscure, it's never been tested before, so, who knows what's going to happen with it. But it also means that in some cases, there isn't a bunch of legal baggage with it already. So they have the opportunity to define new laws. Like they put all these different laws on the books, and then sometimes they get used, sometimes they don't. There's just massive thousands and thousands of pages of laws. But some of them are legitimate, just haven't been enforced. So you go find them and go, actually. So they're actuallying all these different systems using innovative legal techniques.
Only, but it's the main statutory authority that's being used in this order. So birth tourism is by definition a fraud on the American system, on the American taxpayer, on the American visa. If you're coming here, and again, your stated purpose is that you're a tourist, then by definition, you are here to come for a few weeks, look at what we have, engage in commerce, and leave. So if you're telling a consular officer you're here as a tourist, but your true purpose and intent is to go to a baby mill, give birth, and try to mint an American citizen while you're here, then you're committing a fraud against the American government. And by definition, that visa can and should and will be now denied. Yes, for those of you.
So this is where the enforcement comes in. They've established the legal basis for this enforcement mechanism, and now it's up to them to deploy the resources and the training and the personnel and making this a point of emphasis. That they crack down even harder on, there's all these things that are on the books, and they just need the executive is saying, see this thing that's already on the books? Do that. And then it's up to it making its way down the chain of command so that they do that. And they've got Stephen Miller breathing down their neck day and night. The last head of was it the head of ICE? Is retiring because there were reports that he was afraid he was going to have a heart attack because he's getting pressured so hard by Stephen Miller. Yahweh's wife says unenforceable. Literally, the definition of enforceable is contained within the executive because the executive is the one that enforces. And they're laying out the legal basis for it pursuant to what the Supreme Court has already said. So they're challenging the Supreme Court to self-destruct. This is going to get legal challenges as well. And they're going to get run right up the chain again. And so then you're going to have the Supreme Court weighing in on the same issue. Very close together. Are you going to directly contradict yourself? Are you going to completely and thoroughly discredit the institution for all time? This is dropping their balls on the table. Now, obviously, you have to manage the legal side of it, and you have to manage the enforcement side of it. Wouldn't it be great if we got a bunch more guys working on enforcement? Instead of posting on the internet about how little enforcement is happening compared to what they would prefer. Here's the White House Staff Secretary, Will Scharf.
The law is absolutely clear. What we're talking about, as Stephen said, with respect to birth tourism, something that used to happen incidentally, where somebody who happened to be on vacation here went into labor early and had a baby. This was sort of a relatively small problem. What we've seen in recent years, though.
Look at the Norwood power in this picture. The Norwoods are in control. You realize what that means. The libs have no idea what's coming for them.
So is organized rings, at times criminal rings, setting up a system whereby tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people can come to this country in an organized fashion and give birth here purely for the sake of obtaining birthright citizenship. This order takes
Norwood occupied government. The Nogs are coming for the Nigs.
A number of different actions intended to combat those sorts of organized practices. We look very heavily at denying visas to people that we have reason to believe are coming here for that purpose. Visas both for putative parents, but also for the people organizing these rings. There's also obviously a law enforcement component. We'll have a full fact sheet released on this soon, but what we're doing is taking legally validated means that are clearly within our disposal and targeting them square on to this birth tourism industry.
So, listen to him describe that one more time.
Is taking legally validated means that are clearly within our disposal.
Legally validated means that are clearly within our disposal. So this is their emphasis with this. They have sat down. They have put they have centralized their Norwood power. They have mind melded the Norwoods and optimized for writing this in such a way that it corresponds with the opinion just handed down by SCOTUS. This is their emphasis. This is their purpose in fashioning it this way. So they're designing it with the intent of it not being knockdownable. Now, if it gets knocked down, they're going to go about it another way. And if that gets knocked down, they're going to go about it another way. All the while, people are being mass deported. This is the difference between competent governance and a panickin.
Never listen to a panickin.
And targeting them square on to this birth tourism industry. There's absolutely nothing in here that runs afoul of any of the Supreme Court's opinions on the subject. This is, frankly, it's action that's overdue, and I'm thankful that President Trump is finally taking decisive action to combat this issue of birth tourism now that it's been queued up in the way that it has as a result of the Supreme Court's opinion.
Now that it's been queued up. And then here's Trump talking about it.
So we're cracking down very big crackdowns, and this will give us the right to do it in a much more forceful manner. But they've taken birthright citizenship and they've made a joke out of it. And we're actually the only country of size, I think just about the only country, period, that does birthright citizenship. I thought we were going to win it at the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, we had a bad decision, very unfair decision. Our country suffers because of it, and we're ending it a different way. So we're cracking down very big.
Our country suffers because of it. It's not just that, like, oh, I really wanted to do this and now I'm mad. No, they're making our country suffer. My president does not want our country to suffer. My president has suffered for our country. So this guy here asked, did the administration say how this EO complies, sidesteps, or is different from the last EO that triggered the recent ruling on birthright citizenship? Grok replied, the prior EO broadly denied citizenship based on parents' illegal/temporary status and was struck down in Trump v. Barbara as violating the 14th Amendment. This new pair is narrower. One claims to apply only historical exceptions the court itself referenced, alien enemies, foreign terrorist organization members, and foreign agents, not a wholesale rewrite. You know who gets to define these things? You know who gets to define who an alien enemy is? You know who gets to define what a foreign terrorist organization is? You know who gets to define what foreign agents are? The other uses the INA, the Immigration and Naturalization Act, Section 215A statutory authority to ban birth tourism visas as a fraud. So they've said, okay, you're not going to let us ban birth tourism visas on the basis of the birthright citizenship argument. Okay, we're going to say that they are lying to come into the country. They're lying about the reason that they're here. This is fraud. So we can ban this on the basis of their engaging in fraudulent behavior on their visa applications. And once you've made this a priority, then you can start expanding. You can get this is how government bureaucracies work, right? They get directed at a targeted, narrow problem, and then they just kind of gradually start expanding. And it's really just up to the executive leadership how much they keep expanding. Which makes it really important that we maintain continuity of executive leadership, right? So here's a more detailed breakdown of it. I just had Grok summarize it for me. I sat and sort of skimmed through it, and I was like, okay, give me the key points of it. So U.S. citizenship is described as a sacred bond and inheritance, not a commodity. Birth tourism exploits immigration laws through deceptive practices by operators who advertise citizenship, public benefits, and specialized stays. These schemes undermine the immigration system, divert consular resources, erode public confidence, and impair national security efforts. So this is their basis for, they're saying this is fraudulent behavior. This is a commercial behavior engaging in deceptive practices to obtain a visa and these things that come with a visa on the basis of something other than their actual motivation. And it has national security implications. The definition of birth tourism is entering the U.S. on a non-immigrant visa for the purpose of giving birth on American soil or facilitating such entry by others. So this is another thing, is that they can, instead of going after the people themselves coming in, they can go after the people who are facilitating them coming in on the basis that they're engaging in fraudulent behavior with the federal government. The policy is that non-immigrant visa categories, tourism, study, temporary work, etc., must be used only for their intended temporary purposes and not to secure permanent benefits like citizenship for children or potentially the parents later. So this means when they're going through visa applications, this is something that they're going to be looking for. Are there indications that they're coming here to acquire citizenship for children? Is she pregnant? They have the latitude now to grill people on this and decide, nope, we're not going to give you a visa because we think you're lying to us. So the implementation is that the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security, or Marco Rubio and Mark Wayne Mullen, are directed and delegated authority under the Immigration and Nationality Act to take actions including preventing entry or visas for those seeking to engage in birth tourism, revoking visas and permanently barring those who attempt it. So people who already have visas, they can now go back and check and see if they're attempting to engage in birth tourism. There's another thing that you can get real expansive with. Denying entry or removing those who have engaged or plan to engage in it. So again, removing those who have engaged in it, and then taking action against facilitators, operators, and related entities. Now there's exemptions in here. Allowed on humanitarian grounds or when entry is determined to be in the national interest. Obviously, this is a potential loophole. But without that loophole, you're just exposing surface area for a lawsuit. What you want is you want to be able to do this as long as possible with as little legal attention as possible. So if you don't put the exemption in there, then that's going to be immediately highlighted and used. Who controls the definition of humanitarian grounds or when entry is determined to be in the national interest? Who controls that? This is very important. Who controls the loopholes? The executive branch controls the loopholes. So if you don't want the loopholes exploited, then you want continuity of government. You want the executive branch to remain under the control of immigration restrictionists. Here's the other one. This is continuing to protect the meaning and value of American citizenship. The order builds on a June 30, 2026 Supreme Court decision, Trump v. Barber, that limited the 14th Amendment citizenship clause. It directs federal agencies not to recognize U.S. citizenship for certain children born in the United States when neither parent is a U.S. citizen. These are categories of children excluded from birthright citizenship recognition. So federal agencies are barred from issuing or accepting documents that recognize U.S. citizenship in these cases. First, alien enemies. Either parent is a member of a designated foreign terrorist organization or a specially designated global terrorist. Number two, foreign government employees. Either parent is an ambassador, embassy and consulate employee, is an ambassador, embassy, consulate employee who is a national of that country, other official foreign government employee, or someone with an international organization immunity. Birth tourism and commercial transactions. Either parent is engaged in a commercial transaction to obtain birthright citizenship, including arranging for the mother to be present in the U.S. or a U.S. territory specifically to give birth, or using a surrogate in the U.S. or territory for the same purpose. And then certain territories. The person is born in a U.S. territory or territorial waters where federal statute does not confer citizenship. So this one is the Secretaries of State, Homeland Security, Attorney General, and Social Security Commissioner must align their agency's policies with the order. All executive departments and agencies must issue public guidance within 30 days. Standard severability and general provisions apply. No new enforceable rights created subject to available funding, etc. So again, loopholes. This is the state of the government right now. We do not have a functioning federal government. We have an obstructionist Congress. We have a subversive, traitorous judiciary. And we have an executive branch that is in the process of being controlled. If you don't have the stomach for the fight, that's fine. Ditch diggers are important. But ditch diggers need to be digging ditches. We got a lot of ditches to dig. Ditch diggers need to be digging ditches, not engaged in political commentary. This is a generational war that is happening. There are no immediate fix-it buttons. All there is political will. And this is what political will looks like. Now, this clip here from Scott Bessent on the Charlie Kirk show, talking about immigration. So Scott Bessent, we'll talk a little bit more about him in a minute, we've talked about him as one of the most important people in the administration and one of the most powerful people in the administration. And he has been consistent for as long as he's been in since he's really reemerged into the public eye. He's gone out of his way to talk about immigration a lot. He is an immigration restrictionist. Listen to this point he makes here.
Communities, when you get, and we don't know what it was it 10, was it 15, was it 25 million illegals? There's no new housing stock. So, you saw rents go through the roof, and now the people don't want to admit it, but there are academic studies that show where ICE goes, rents go down.
That's exactly right.
Rents go down.
So,
where ICE goes, rents go down. Fascinating. Homeless Nomad says falling back to the INA is interesting as well, since that challenges SCOTUS to overrule statute on 14th Amendment grounds. They've given a constitutional finding. Trump is now testing if they're willing to follow through. That's a really interesting point. Yeah, this is a test. This is a test for the Supreme Court. How are you going to proceed here? You basically ripcorded out of the previous decision. So now there's even more pressure on you. Are you going to double down on that? Knowing that when you double down, we're going to double down as well. Some people just don't have the stomach for high stakes games. They want everything to be straightforward and easy and like Care Bears comfortable. And it's just not. These are high stakes games. So speaking of ICE, this clip here, this video here, Looks like it's in the Pacific Northwest. This is like Washington, where I grew up. But look, check out these ICE agents here.
These guys have active asylum applications. What are you trying to do? What you trying to do?
Look at this guy.
They have active applications. They're here
Get
legally.
out. Don't put your phone in my face.
Don't push me.
Don't put your phone in my face.
Why would you push somebody?
Stay arm's length away from me.
I'm right here. I was
Stay an
arm's
arm's
length.
length away from me.
I was.
Next time I'll take you into custody.
I'm right
I don't know
here.
who you play with in the past, but I'll take you in.
I'm an attorney.
I don't
an
care.
immigration attorney.
I don't care.
And I'm a
if
US
you violate
citizen.
the law, guess what,
I'm
immigration
standing
attorney?
right here.
You'll be standing in court too.
I'm standing right here. I'm
18
an
U.S.C.
arm's
111.
length.
You
So
get
you're
my
going to
face
come after
again,
me?
we'll
You're
have
going to shoot
problems.
me? These guys have active asylum applications.
Look at these boys.
There's nothing wrong with them. Why are you trying to pick them up?
You don't know what they have.
So why are you trying to pick them up? You have no idea. It's not legal.
It's none of your business.
It is my business. I'm their attorney. It's exactly my business. Get the fuck out of this apartment. Get out of here. Just leave. These guys are here legally. Get out of here. Get out of here. Go. Just go. Get off the property. You're not trying to do anything good. You're not helping anything. Get out of here. Right now. Go. Get out of here.
These are young dudes, too.
Get out of here.
It's funny.
You're
What do you
funny.
think you're
What are
gonna
you
make
trying
us
to do?
leave?
I'm an arm's length.
Yeah, good. You learned your lesson.
So get out
You're
of here.
a wise attorney.
Get the fuck out. Go. Can't believe you're not afraid to show.
So here's the thing. What these guys are doing, like this is what mass deportations looks like. They've got information. You'll hear it more in the conversation that's coming up here. These guys have information on a particular person. They have to go find them. They have to go in teams of guys and go look for the guy or the girl or the family or whoever it is. They just have to try to hunt them down. This looks like it's probably in a blue state, which means local law enforcement is not cooperating, and if anything, they're obstructing. So they just have to go there and try to follow up recent leads and go call people that they know and try to like not spook them, but try to figure out where they are, go hunt them down. So if they're in this apartment complex, they may not know exactly where they are in the apartment complex. So they might just have to like stand around and twiddle their thumbs for a while and wait for the people to show up. And so they'll go and they'll look for this person, and maybe then if they can't find them, you make a note of it, and then you go on to the next one. This is what mass deportations looks like. Do you realize what a monumental logistics task this is? Whoops. Damn it.
These guys have active asylum. I'm an arm's length.
Yeah, good. You learned your lesson.
So get out
You're
of here.
a wise attorney.
Get the fuck out. Go. Can't believe you're not afraid to show your face. Get out of here.
Ryan Isaac says on a landlord group call last night, one of the guy's tenants, the husband, got picked up by ICE and deported in a few days. Many such cases. Just keeps happening.
Here. You must not be from around here. You're touching your pepper spray? You're going to pepper spray me?
You were saying you're their attorney?
Get out of here.
You said you're their attorney, right?
I am their attorney.
Okay. So you know that they will release on certain conditions, whether order of
I
supervision
know
or
the
something
law,
like that?
and on the active asylum application,
Right.
they're not released on order of supervision. They came in legally, so get the fuck
Right,
out.
so they're on an order of
Get out.
recognizance, right?
Get out.
Which means they have reporting requirements.
No,
or they have
you
certain
have no
requirements.
idea what these clients are about.
You have no idea
Do you
what
have a
client
written?
have.
Do you have? No, I do. I know specifically which ones you came and knocked on their door. Do
Okay.
you have a warrant?
So under their conditions
No,
of
do you have a
release,
warrant?
You do not need a warrant to knock
Yeah,
on
the
their
fuck
door.
you do. Get out. Get out.
Cops make warrantless arrests all the day.
Yeah, it's illegal. It's against due process. Get out. It is.
If you develop
You
probable
are not
cause,
an
Mrs.
attorney. Get out.
You would know that we
Fourth
could take
Amendment.
the person into
Why
custody.
are you without arm's length?
We've got dudes like this who are being paid now to just go out and publicly humiliate lib attorneys.
You just came up to me, so back off. Arm's length right now.
So on their
Don't you
order-
dare push
Yeah,
me
she gave the
again.
game away. Yep.
Get the
Alpha
fuck
or Tiffany
out!
Bravo.
ICE is here! ICE is here! Do not come out! Get the fuck out now!
You wanted to talk
Go!
because you were an
I
attorney.
don't, because you're not an attorney. You have no idea what you're
You
talking
said you
about.
were an attorney.
Get out.
But I
Yeah,
signed
but
those
you're not,
conditions of
and you have
release.
no idea what you're talking about.
Yes, I
So
do.
get out.
When they're on an asylum process, right?
Get out.
They get served a 220 alpha.
Get.
So you hear him describing the process here. These are people who came here with asylum claims, and they had a duty to report in. and they haven't reported in. So they're going through the list of people who that applies to. There's a record somewhere has been kept, says this person, here's their last known address. They had this duty to report by this date. They're not there. Go get them, bring them in. And so they just have to go try to find the person.
Get out now. Leave.
And then they get enrolled into
So where's your paper?
alternative to detention, right?
No, you can't just come pick them up.
Right. So if they're on
They've done
an
nothing
alternative
wrong.
to detention and they have failed
You
to
don't know that
comply-
they are.
How do you not know that
Because
they
you
are?
have no paper saying that they are.
Who said that?
Where? How do
We
you know that
obviously
they
knocked on
are?
a certain door because we knew
If you have
exactly.
a paper saying what the heck is going on, then show me.
I don't need to show you.
Yeah, you do need to show me. Get out.
I don't need to show you.
Get out.
We are going to get out.
Get out.
We are.
So leave right now.
We're going to be the last ones out. We gotta make
No,
sure
you're gonna
we
wait till
leave.
everybody leaves their apartments.
And then as you start to leave, right?
Get the fuck out.
We go where we want to go, and we stay as long as we want to stay. So
Because you're such.
And they got a great good cop, bad cop thing going here with it. This guy's just like, you never know when he's just going to snap and tackle someone. Hopefully he doesn't, but you never know when it's going to happen. And then the other guy's there in the event that there is someone reasonable that they can work with.
Such tough guys. You're such
you want us
tough
to leave,
guys.
maybe you should just walk your ass inside,
Get out.
and then we probably leave.
Just get out.
We're disrespectful.
You show me a warrant.
You're funny.
Ma'am, I already told
You show me a.
So they were already on the way to leaving. Like you saw when he walked up, they were like, all right, we like this guy ran or we don't know where he is. So we need to either like go to the next person on the list or go to the next known location that he might be or where a family member might be. So he's on his way back to the car when she comes there. So now they're just standing here bullshitting with her, seeing if they can pull something out.
Show me a warrant.
The 220 Alpha or
No,
220
no.
Bravo.
Show me a
Their
paper that.
conditions of
Show me a paper that you can
release,
pick up
they're the
these
attorney.
specific people.
Listen.
There is due process, and you guys are not
Exactly.
following it. So
And
get
there
in
are
your
also
car and get the
conditions
fuck
of
out.
release. There are also conditions of release.
You
that
have
they
no
must
idea
comply
what
with.
these people are here on.
You have no idea.
No, I do because I'm their attorney.
Okay, so what were their
So
conditions
get
of
out.
release? What
I'm not
conditions-
telling you because you don't know.
They were alternatives to
Get
detention,
out.
right?
Yeah, there's deportation's not a criminal offense. They don't need a warrant. There isn't criminal due process. These people are not entitled to the criminal due process. They're entitled to whatever process the Congress has set up. And the process the Congress has set up is if you find them, arrest them and deport them. It's just a matter of enforcing that. Kate says these so-called base right-wing influencer commentators thinks ICE are basically garbage men who can easily pick up illegals like on a trash route. No retards, they're like bear wranglers painstakingly trying to draw the bears out to bring them back to their habitats. Yes. Think about like the training and stuff that you need to go through to get to this point. This is why it took as long as it did from when they got the funding last July and then did the big hiring push and then trained all them up and then got them deployed this year. Because they have to equip these guys with they're pulling people in from all sorts of different industries and they've got to be able to equip them to comport themselves appropriately in these types of circumstances. Also, without like losing their minds and creating some kind of atrocity that's going to be a huge headache that the administration has to deal with.
Alternative to
No,
detention?
get out.
We're gonna go arrest other people.
You have no idea what it is. Get the fuck out of here.
We're going to go arrest other people. He said something about the McMinnville case, so maybe this is in Portland. Somewhere in the greater, like in Oregon somewhere. Custodestro, what's up, man? Haven't seen you in a while. How do I give you money? Tips.kingpill.com. Tips.kingpill.com is the way to do it. If you get the Streamlabs page, though, tips.kingpill.com should take you to Ko-fi. If you get the Streamlabs page, then just clear your cookies because you went there before, and it remembers it. Your browser remembers it now. So just clear your bullshit out of your browser, and then go again. It should take you to Ko-fi. Yeah, deportation order is a warrant. Now, there's my favorite part of the video. I watched the whole video and I was like, okay, it was not super. It was kind of a little anticlimactic until the moment.
When you were justifying McMinnville, right?
No, I understand what you're saying.
220 Alpha, look that form up, read the conditions of release, and then you'll see if they violate it, we can arrest them. There is no warrant.
Yeah, you
that's
guys love
needed.
arresting people who've done nothing wrong.
They violated their
No,
conditions of release.
no, you have no idea.
Violation of their conditions of
You
release.
have no idea. You have no idea what these specific people came in on. Obviously, because it's not that. So get the fuck out. And try.
Who knows if she's even a lawyer? Like, she could just be like a friend or something, or just some activist who is it knows the bare minimum about something like this. Also, immigration attorneys are like a dime a dozen. It's like generally they're loser attorneys who I think they don't have to pass the bar exam, do they? Do immigration attorneys have to pass the bar? I don't think so. So this is another thing, is like, we could use a lot of guys who are willing to go do this sort of work and be immigration attorneys themselves, even though it maybe doesn't pay super well. How about having some donors, some billionaires who will fund our guys becoming immigration attorneys?
Try to grow up here. Do something good for your living.
I was talking really politely to you. I know you're trying to get under my skin.
No, I care. I care about people. All right? So get in your car and leave.
Yes.
So she comes and gets their license plates on what are likely rental vehicles.
Thank you.
Here comes the part that I was talking about. Right here.
Where are you guys from?
Ah! That smile! I fell off my chair yesterday when I saw that. Watch a guy on the right.
Where are you guys from? Where are you guys from? Where are you coming in from?
That's none of your business.
No? We care about our people here.
He just smirks at her. What a time to be alive, man. The federal government is paying chuds to publicly chud out on lib immigration attorneys. Incredible. Incredible things happening. So in one of the Republican midterms in Michigan a couple days ago, 2 days ago, this is hilarious. So Trump endorsed this guy named Amir Hassan, one of our...
look at my African American over here. Look at him.
And Thomas J. Smith was running against him. Thomas J. Smith suspended his campaign when Trump endorsed Amir Hassan. He dropped out of the primary, suspended his campaign, but remained on the ballot, didn't even have a picture on the MS Now broadcast. And he won. He's literally winning because his name is Tom Smith and the other guy is named Amir Hassan. I don't see any other explanation for this apart from the Michigan 8th District said, I'm not voting for someone named Al Lemo or Amir Hassan. I see Thomas J. Smith. Sounds like the guy for me. How do you think this bodes for Mike Rogers? So let's back up just a little bit. These two absolutely retarded faggots, Rich Barris and Mark Mitchell. Rich Barris soy-faced over this ad from, what is his name? Abdul. I have something up here and just, what is it? Hold on. Abdul El Sayed. I don't even want to know his name. He posts this ad.
Just a city boy.
Remigration attorney.
They never passed the bar, but I passed out at the bar, so I win.
I see that attorney spelling. I see that. Thank you, friend. So I'm not going to keep playing it because it'll definitely, the Journey song will definitely get the stream demonetized. But, so Rich Barris. See, here's this consistent pattern with all of these sorts of faggots. There's super base. I'm like right wing of Trump. Trump is like such a slave of Zionism and Jews. He sucks Jewish cock, and I'm so much more right wing than he is. All these guys do is go around soy-facing about the most recent thing that the libs did. Or about how powerful the libs are. Oh, these silly Republicans. They have no idea how powerful the libs are. Look at that. They made an ad with Journey in it. Real Politica data said the discourse on this platform is getting more deranged and full of shit by the day. The same logic is what convinced Democrats the brat shit was proof that Harris was secretly ahead. It's almost like these are the same fucking people. Mark Mitchell. No, Rogers isn't the favorite because Rogers isn't the favorite. With a fucking Kalshi screenshot. You dumb bitch. Do you even know what Kalshi is? You're probably getting paid by them, honestly. This literally just means that people put money on Abdul El-Sayed. Which people? For what reason? I don't know. Nobody knows. People put money on Abdul El-Sayed. Now, this becomes a sort of a self-fulfilling thing in these markets because you have people like Mark Mitchell, Mr. Honest Pollster, who says, well, obviously Abdul El-Sayed is gonna win. And then someone who follows Mark Mitchell, who wants to make some money, is going to go put some money on Abdul El-Sayed winning. On August 3rd, from The Economist, the Michigan Senate forecast, they said Abdul El-Sayed, or the Democrat, it was between Abdul El-Sayed and that other the chick with that talked like the 1930s baseball broadcaster or something. I don't remember her name now. One of the Cork Chungus chick. She was running against Abdul El-Sayed. And on August 3rd, The Economist said the Democrat had an 84% chance of winning. Republican was at 16%. And the expectation, I think, was that El-Sayed was going to win. So this was them basically saying El-Sayed has an 84% chance against Mike Rogers. And then the primaries happened, and look at this. This is like the perfect case. This image right here should be like the Biden one with the midnight ballot dump. This image right here. This is why anybody who's citing Polymarket or Kalshi to you about political outcomes, Haley Stevens, yeah, that's right. Anybody who's citing these to you about political outcomes is revealing themselves to be a credulous rube. Does this mean Rogers is the favorite now, or do I need to wait for Kalshi to catch up? So, the odds of victory, the shift from before the primary, Mike Rogers has suddenly picked up 6 points directly from Abdul El-Sayed, a net shift of 11.6 points for Rogers. And Mike Rogers has 50.2% of the vote share total as well, based on the number of votes that came into the primary. So, we've got, where'd it go? Tom Smith, who had suspended his campaign and dropped out of the primary, winning against the Trump-endorsed Amir Hassan in this Michigan district. And now you have Mike Rogers running against Abdul El-Sayed. Now, the other thing here was that the expectation was Abdul El-Sayed was gonna win going away in the primary against Haley Stevens. And it actually ended up being extraordinarily close, and it was very clear that there was mail-in ballot dumps, and the same as like in Southern California. There was very obviously weird voting patterns on the behalf of Haley Stevens. They tried to steal it for Haley Stevens in her own primary and failed. But they got really, really close. And all of the libs are all super pissed off because, like all the ardent, like woke libs are all super pissed off because Haley Stevens got a ton of AIPAC money. That matter is tearing the Democrat Party apart right now. So CNN here has some commentary on Abdul El-Sayed narrowly winning.
Stevens. In your Columbia blue, you've got Abdul El-Sayed. And what you see here is you see that Haley Stevens did particularly well in this corridor. And what's in this corridor? Well, there are a lot of working class voters and a lot of African American voters. Abdul El-Sayed did very poorly amongst these groups in the primary. It's going to be very interesting to see whether or not he can bring them into the tent come the general election, bring those swing voters with them, because where Abdul El-Sayed did well, to be honest with you, we're really just college towns. That's where he really ran up the score. This is Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor's in this county, and Ann Arbor, of course, is the University of Michigan. We zone out a little bit. Another place he did particularly well was Lansing. Again, we're talking 20-plus point margins. You can't Haley Stevens in your...
Thank you, Harry. Very cool. So Awaken Mandate here says this is exactly what Vance was talking about last night. So the you're seeing what the split is really between the Democrat Party. You've got the working class and African American voters versus the upscale white lib culture. Now, the college town people, these might be extremely diverse, but they're all going to be variations of people trying to outcompete each other as upper class bougie libs. Here is the commentary that he was referring to from J.D. Vance.
But they say they can't afford a home. The average home ownership is up to like 42 years of age. 10, 15 years ago, it was much lower. There's concern about the cost of living, still high energy prices, $100 to fill my tank today.
It's your immigration attorney again.
Surely the incredulous rubes will be scandalized by your eloquent burn. H.H.
No, they won't be able to understand it. That's the problem, So I'm really just like a performing monkey up here for all the people who will actually understand the eloquent burns.
What does the Republican Party, specifically the administration, need to do better on that front? Because there are real strains out there.
Well, I think that what it shows is that the past 40 years of economic policy, bipartisan economic policy, have failed. I think a lot of people look at El Sayed or a lot of these other radical candidates and they say socialism is evil. They're right. Socialism is evil. But we have to ask ourselves the question, why is socialism so appealing to a lot of people who, to your point, have lower assets, who don't have the same ownership, who went to universities and were sold a bill of goods? They got a lot of debt, but they didn't necessarily get the good jobs that came along with that high debt load. And I think our answer to that, and by the way, you've already seen a lot of it in the Trump administration, is number one, protect American manufacturing. The manufacturing economy is the foundation of the middle class. We see this in Europe. We saw it in the United States. Every country that sells its industrial base to the highest foreign bidder loses its middle class and sees socialism come on the back end. What I think is actually going to happen is these socialist candidates, they've caught the tail end of an economy that wasn't working for most Americans. Unfortunately for them, the Trump economy has made long-term investments in rebuilding that manufacturing base and making America energy independent and actually making it possible to own a home, to have a family, to build the real elements of middle-class life again.
Manufacturing.
This is... He's just so good. My wife says having a new baby at home looks good on him. yeah, Dapper Vance, looking very presidential. Someone else, I pointed this out, and I just thought it was a good observation. They said it's very clear that the administration is self-consciously pursuing attack right now where Trump is prominently over the top, signaling largely to the asset-owning class and the boomers. Why? Because they're the ones who overwhelmingly vote in midterms. So he's signaling to them, we're not going to tank you. We're not going to destroy you. You're not going to be bankrupted. All your nest egg you've protected your whole life, your Social Security, your Medicare. No, we're preserving these things for you. So don't bail out on us and go, try to vote for John Normaldson, the Marxist Democrat. Bear with us. Meanwhile, Vance is messaging to the much more podcast-aware, much more online, younger generation, saying, we see you. We understand what you're going through. We understand the problem. We get the problem. We're doing the long, underground work that is going to solve the problem for the future. But it's going to take time to actually come to pass. So fortunately for us, you guys typically don't really turn out in the midterms anyway. So if you're really mad right now, we understand. We understand that you're mad. We need to deal with this election. We need to get through this election because we've got a whole bunch of stuff lined up after it. So I understand you're mad right now. Don't worry. Things are going to get better. And really then, the people just have to, it's kind of like you have to take your kid and put them in a room and shut the door and lock it for a while and let them chimp out and freak out and break things and throw stuff around and have a cow. And then, okay, are you done now? All right, come back out again. Here is an interesting anecdote. I just needed to slip this in here somewhere. I apologize for subjecting you guys to Whitney Cummings' voice and I mean, face too, frankly. But here's her talking about the infamous roast with Donald Trump.
When the person being roasted goes up at the end, that's where it gets interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't just go, hey guys, come to this roast and roast me. You guys are all my friends. And then I'm just like, it's kind of, it has to sort of be about something else. And that is what Donald Trump really knew. I mean, the guy's like a media genius, quite obviously. But so they kept telling us, he's going to run for president. Like there's this fact sheet. And we're like, okay, we're talking about his college. He had a steak business. He had, he's had every sort
apprentice,
of
all that.
All of it.
Yeah.
And so we're going all these other ways, the hotels and the da-da-da. And we're ignoring the president thing. We're just like, that's a stunt. It's silly. Like, what are you talking
hilarious.
about? And then, we go up and we do the this and your dick and you're this and you're that and da-da. And then he gets up there and, I'm like, great. He's going to call me a whore. He's going to call everyone, whatever. And he gets up and he goes, this is what's wrong with America. All these Hollywood elites beating up on a self-made man.
Ooh.
And we're like, what?
He was dead ass?
What? Call me a whore. Call me a slut. Call me a cumface. What's happening? What's he doing? And he kind of, that was.
There was there's a soundboard for you.
Ooh. And we're like, what?
He was dead ass?
What? Call me a whore. Call me a slut. Call me a cumface. What's happening? What's he doing? And he kind of, that was like his first step.
Trying to be like.
In being like likable, and it was genius.
I have no idea. This is Whitney Cummings, the comedian. I have no idea who this other chick is, some podcast or something.
And people started blaming us for like, you made him likable. You made him seem like an underdog. Like the roast was like his first sort of like step.
Because then didn't he do SNL?
Yeah, I believe so. And then Alec Baldwin did him forever or whatever. But it was like, when you do the roast, it makes everybody love you because they see you can have a sense of humor about yourself. And Donald Trump, he would, every time you'd hit him hard, he'd be like, ooh, right? And so I would.
Kate says, OMG, I got to watch that roast and I've never seen it before. Yes. If you have not seen that roast, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. It is, especially now. So I watched it then. Like when it first came out. The one joke that I remember from it was I think Snoop Dogg made some reference to Trump running for president, and he wouldn't be the first. It was something about the gold-plated White House, and he wouldn't be the first person to like throw a black family out of their house and move in or something like that. It was pretty funny.
I went up. Yeah, totally.
And then Melania.
I went up and I was like, bah, 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 bah. And then afterwards, you customarily go up and say, like, thank you for being such a good sport. And I went hard. And he was kind of like, and I truly kind of felt bad. And I went up to him and he pulled me in and he just went, that was great television. Great television. I was like, I hadn't even heard that term.
The boomer president. At that time, the boomer mogul. That was great television. Just a reminder that when it comes to stagecraft, the Don knows what he's doing. Speaking of managing a stage, this was at a rally in Las Vegas.
Thank you. It's truly an honor. It's
Watch the kid.
An honor to stand here before you and speak.
Now watch the president.
Sorry, excuse me. I have a little mumbling going on right now. I'm so sorry. No, he's going to take off. Thank you. I know. Sorry, excuse me. I stand here before you and speak. Sorry, excuse me. I have a little mumbling going on right now. I'm so sorry. No, he's going to take off.
He says, I didn't want him to be Biden and fall off the stage. Ah! Mr. President, how does he do it?
Thank you. Thank you. Truly, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. It's an honor to be here today.
Remigration attorney.
Whitney Cummings? I don't think so. Absolutely would. You could tell she has gargling damage. My president knows great television.
So true, Dave Kabobulated. Gargling damage. Oh man, that got me. Yes, indeed. She does have gargling damage. I hope Amy is still watching, because that probably got her good too. Yeah, gargling damage in Dale's voice. I'm gonna play out one more time. I don't know why it's delayed today. Is it actually going to play? Maybe it won't. Well, anyways, gargling damage. Yes, that was very, very good. Now, at that rally yesterday, we got a speech from a great and notorious patriot. You guys ready for this? Slutty Milk, where are you at?
Wow. This is amazing. Look at this crowd. This will be the biggest crowd I ever speak in front of. This feels a little bit like when I was at Abbey Road recording with Paul McCartney, but that's a story for another day, so we won't get into that. I am Marty O'Donnell. I'm here to retire Susie Lee. Thank you.
It's Marty!
I want to thank President Trump for coming to Nevada, for letting me speak today. This is an amazing honor and privilege. And it's also great that he's here in the district that I'm going to represent to Washington. District 3, right here. So for those of you who don't know me very well, I'm Marty O'Donnell. Like I said, I'm running for Congress in District 3. And I had a career making music that millions of people listen to in some very popular video games, Halo and Destiny. Thank you. A few nerds out there in the audience. Now,
he loves his nerds.
One other thing you might not know, I also had a career doing TV jingles. For those of you who grew up in the 80s or 90s, or maybe at least were around in the 80s and 90s, you would have heard a jingle that goes, "We are Flintstones kids, 10 million strong."
I didn't know this.
Thank you. So people know. Yes, exactly. Now, the little girl who sang "And Growing" was my daughter. And she grew up and had 2 grandsons for me, so that she grew up. That was great. She and growing herself. You might wonder why I am doing this.
Marty O'Donnell has 2 patriot grandsons. That's what I just heard.
I wonder why I'm doing this too. But I'll tell you in one phrase why I'm doing it. My grandkids. This is why I'm running.
Emperor Trades.
We want the Trump roast, schizo stream, or Suda wave. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
The Trump roast Suda wave. Okay. I'm going to send a message.
I look around. I have 3 grandsons, all born right here in the district.
3.
And they are my pride and joy, of course. Both my daughters live here. And I look at what's happened in this country. The country has drifted from its roots. It's drifted over time. And you know what I'm talking about. It used to be one good job was enough to raise a family, to buy a house, to maybe take your kids on vacation once a year. And that's not the case anymore, and it should be. Now it's 2 incomes just to tread water. And we have to get that stopped. Young couples cannot buy a home anymore. It's so difficult. Now, this is why we have to vote the Republicans back in and
so
get
true.
The majority. Keep the majority. Keep the majority.
Obviously.
The reason is President Trump and his administration has already done so much. Lowered taxes, brought American jobs back for American workers and American families. He's just done a tremendous job. We got to give him a solid 4 years to keep this thing going, to keep this.
How can you consider yourself a patriot when you go on the internet and countersignal Marty fucking O'Donnell? I don't care who you are or what you stand for. If you stand against Marty O'Donnell, you stand against America.
Keep this fight going. It's just unbelievable to me that there's even a question about this. Now, he was able to do this over the last 2 years pretty much.
It's unbelievable it's even a question. So true.
Question about this. Now, he was able to do this over the last 2 years pretty much without any help from the other side. And I mean none. And we all know where Susie Lee lands in on all this stuff. She voted against the bill that cuts taxes. She voted against no tax on tips for our workers here in Nevada. She basically supported the potentially biggest tax rise in the history of the country. And she's got to go. So let me just say that this situation in Washington, D.C., I'm not sure how many people in D.C. even feel what we're feeling. What do they feel when they go to the grocery store? Nothing. What do they feel when the rent check comes due? I don't think they're feeling this. We feel it, and we got to change this. But this wasn't something that I think happened in just, the last decade. This isn't one Congress that has done this. Both sides have drifted away from what our country is founded on for the last, at least, most of my lifetime. I've seen our country drift, and we have to change it. And I would say, in honor of Charlie Kirk, I also want to talk about...
Charlie!
One of the most important things Charlie reminded us of is that our country is adrift because we've drifted from God. 250 years ago, our founders knew exactly how this works. They said something truly revolutionary because they said, they talked about that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that we're endowed by our Creator with these rights, freedom being one of them. So what does that mean? It means that, and by the way, our Creator also at one point told us, and we know this, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So freedom itself is a gift. Freedom
It's so
itself
good!
is from the mind of God, not from the mind of man. Truth will set you free. Taking the Fifth Amendment will not set you free, by the way. So, and we're doing this, not for ourselves. We're here to do what we need to do for our kids and our grandkids, period. So, thank you. So, I need your vote. All the Republicans need your vote. You need to hold the line, keep the faith, and finish the fight.
He said the thing! He said
My name
it!
is Marty O'Donnell. I'm running for Congress in the 3rd Congressional District of Nevada. Thank you for coming. God bless you all, and God bless America. See you later.
Yeah, the boomers have no idea that he said the thing. Oh, every single millennial just got the total, acorns activated. And then he went and he posted this ad.
This piano's in tune because I take care of it. Neglect it, and nothing sounds right. That's our economy. Congress neglects us while lining their pockets, self-dealing, insider trading, while you do more with less. One good job used to buy a home, fill your tank, raise a family. Not anymore. I'm Marty O'Donnell. I approve this message because it's time to get Congress back in tune.
If you are in Las Vegas, or you know what? Screw it. Even if you're not, what are voter laws like in Las Vegas? I don't know, actually. But I want to vote for Marty O'Donnell so many times. Moving to Vegas, yeah. Using the Halo leitmotif and a calm piano font to keep the boomers okay is brilliant. Yes. Marty O'Donnell, one of our greatest patriots. Speaking of patriots, Donald Trump is tired of the attacks on Patriot Pete Hegseth. He says, the fake news, as usual, is spreading false and completely unfounded rumors. I am extremely happy with the job that Pete Hegseth is doing. Everything has been extraordinary, including our attack on Venezuela, where the result was accomplished in less than 1 day, allowing us to bring one of the worst criminals anywhere in the world, Nicolas Maduro, to justice. Likewise, Iran, where the country has been decimated for the purpose of not allowing it to ever have a nuclear weapon, is going very well. Pete is highly respected within the military and has made tremendous improvements, including getting rid of DEI and increasing recruitment to historic levels. This rumor, he's done it again. This rumor was started by the Washington Compost, one of the worst media outlets in the business, despite our telling them their story is completely false. In actuality, I really believe their fake reporting is treasonous. So true, Mr. President. The Washington Compost. How does he do it? The Washington Compost is a Democrat operation. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. The Washington Compost. The man is one of a kind. Absolutely one of a kind. Here's some more good news.
Connecticut Children's Hospital has agreed to stop performing gender-altering surgeries on minors as part of a settlement with the Justice Department. The hospital will also put $500,000 toward medical care for patients who suffered what the agreement calls, quote, harmful consequences. It is the third hospital to reach a deal with the Trump administration.
So 3 hospitals now have reached a deal with the Trump administration to terminate transgender surgery for children. Now, $500K toward medical care for patients who suffered harmful consequences is fucking atrocious. But we will keep moving the ball forward. One hospital at a time. And here's an interesting little note. So, shortly after the Iran war, the initiation of the Iran war, actually, it's technically not an initiation. If it's $500K each, that's more like it. That could have been what that was. It didn't say $500K each. It just said $500K toward medical care for patients. So I guess that could be understood to be $500K per patient. In which case, that would be a fucking coup. Trump started granting waivers for the Jones Act, which is basically it restricts the ability for the United States to I think it has to do with foreign shipping companies shipping goods within the United States. It was something along those lines. Anyways, what it was doing is it was restricting domestic shipping capacity. Peyton Alexander here says, we built the Panama Canal, but because of the Jones Act, a cargo ship from Shanghai cannot stop at LA on the way to Houston. A tanker from Saudi Arabia can't stop at New York on the way to San Francisco. They have to go all the way back and make a direct trip so that they don't. Now that Trump is granting waivers, look what's happening. Massive trade flowing between our coasts via the canal. Puerto Rico, which used to be forced to depend on foreign imports, now has massive trade with the mainland U.S. Lift the Jones Act permanently and lower cost of living across the empire. Now, there's reasons for not lifting it permanently necessarily. It's nice to have this thing that you can dial up and dial down as need be. But if you listen to coverage of the economy in general, people act like it's just absolutely melting down and catastrophically collapsing all over the place because the administration has done a number of things that we've always been told would cause the complete and total meltdown of everything. But they've also done things to mitigate that, like waivers for the Jones Act. So one of the first things I think of here is as California is decommissioning so much of their oil industry or crippling it, there's actually a ready-made solution right here for easily moving oil from the Gulf Coast around to California while they're spinning everything back up there. I don't know all the details or the ins and outs of all of that, but I'm just saying, like, this is an example of all the stuff that doesn't get talked about, that doesn't get covered, that then just doesn't get factored into the calculus, that makes people think things are worse than they actually are. That's not to say that there aren't things that are bad. It's just that we're not anywhere near collapse. We're not anywhere near, like, mass, catastrophic, out of control economic combustion. Bank of America says that lower income jobs and wages outpaced higher earners. The Bank of America says the U.S. labor market is moving beyond the K-shaped economy. Lower income households saw 3% year-over-year job growth in July versus 1% for higher income workers, while after-tax wage growth reached 5.2%, topping 4.2% for higher income households for the first time since December of 2024. Bank of America says stronger wage gains alongside solid productivity growth support customer spending without necessarily increasing inflation. This is one of these emerging indicators of all the changes that have been made to the tax code, to the all the different sliders that impact the labor market. The administration has made a bunch of changes, and they're going to take a while to really start bearing fruit. Now is around the time when you would start to expect these things to emerge. All the upward pressure on wages, but it's upward pressure on particular wages because the financialized economy is getting decimated both by AI and by the reindustrialization process and all the malinvestment. Remigration attorney again.
Now they can use one boat to deploy the veganizing ticks laced with chemicals that make the friggin' frogs gay.
Yes, there are always loopholes, aren't there? There are always loopholes. Yeah, there are always loopholes, aren't there? That's weird. I think I just broke my brain. It sounds wrong, but it's right. There are always loopholes, aren't there? My brain wants to say there are always loopholes, isn't there? But there is always loopholes. There always exist loopholes. Loopholes always exist, don't they? There we go. Sorry, this is the things that my brain occupies itself with. There are always loopholes, are there not? Hey, that's good too. There are always loopholes, are there not? It's funny how that works. Because you're saying the exact same thing. You're just like you're taking the contraction and anyways. Nothing bad can happen. It can only loophole happen. Homeless Nomad says, beef is just a function of Biden killed a bunch of the beef herd and it takes time to raise a cow. People expect Trump to magically make cows age faster. Right! Do you see the things my president puts up with? He has people angry at him for not magically altering the age of cows. And you see, if he was to actually alter the age of cows, immediately it would be ignored. And he would be saying, you're not doing anything. I literally altered the age of cows. Not good enough. Scott Besson says, a familiar act of mainstream media sophistry. Work backward from a partisan verdict and then call the result analysis. I love how he does this. He just periodically takes time out of his day to eviscerate the chosen member or representative of whether it's the permanent bureaucracy or academia or the media. A familiar act of mainstream media sophistry. Work backward from a partisan verdict and then call the result analysis. The truth is, wages are up for Americans across the distribution, but importantly, earnings growth for Main Street workers at the 25th earnings percentile was 5.5% year over year in the latest data this past quarter. More than 3 times the growth experienced by workers in the 75th percentile.
Live autism update.
So true, remigration attorney. So true. Looks like we're about almost halfway to the goal right now. So if I guess if I go long enough, remigration attorney might get us there. But make sure you're over at forum.kingpill.com. Make sure you go over there and sign up. So if we do hit the goal tonight, then a drawing will occur and you can be considered for the chance to win 10% for the big guy. 10% of the total tip take tonight. Thank you, remigration attorney. He takes a time out to mog. Our mogging gigafag. So let me start this over again. The truth is, wages are up for Americans across the distribution, but importantly, earnings growth for Main Street workers at the 25th earnings percentile, so the bottom 25%, was 5.5% year over year in the latest data this past quarter, more than 3 times the growth experienced by workers at the 75th percentile. Median weekly earnings also rose a robust 4.6%, well outpacing inflation. This marks a stark improvement from the loss of purchasing power that Main Street Americans experienced during the Biden administration. Families have not forgotten the pain of Biden-era policies, but President Trump is turning the tide. The fact is, lower-wage workers are leading, median workers are gaining, and the pundit-driven K-shaped economy narrative does not hold up. BLS has published the wage data for all to see, including journalists willing to look past the haze of their hostility toward the president. So here's the data right here. Usual weekly earnings growth by earnings quartile, the percent increase from the second quarter of 2025 to the second quarter of 2026. So the 25th percentile, bottom quartile here, is growing much faster. You could see the economy was getting completely out of whack, and now they're pulling it back into alignment again. These are things that don't happen overnight. There is no single policy that can magically realign all of the things that are out of alignment. It takes the policies that make it happen being instituted, and then a long time delay as it filters its way through the system, and then ultimately emerges with increased wages, because that's what it's going to take. Everyone wants to see the administration go just cram down asset prices, but they still have to win elections. And Bertrades,
all we need to do to fix everything is ban birthright citizenship. Why has nobody even thought of this yet? We'll talk about it next time on the Astrolabe.
So true. It's called the Astrolabe, nigga. Just ban it. Why has nobody thought of this? That, of course, is a reference to Tucker Carlson's big announcement yesterday, where he was like, the one thing that would bring back unity to the country would be if we settled on a single language, and that language was English. It's such an obvious solution that I can't believe nobody has thought of it. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? I said, we're going to get the emergence of a political movement that says, we're MAGA, but better. Just pretending as if MAGA doesn't even exist. But yeah, Homeless Nomad says, just crash the housing market, bro. That'll fix it. Yeah. Thinking that it is conceivable, it really just shows the shallowness of people's understanding of the world around them. If you think that it would be economically or electorally viable to try to solve this problem by just crashing the housing market. Do you realize the downstream effects of crashing the housing market? Do you have any idea what crashing the housing market would do? You think it's hard to get a job now? You think things are expensive now? You think that social cohesion has broken down now? You think now is the time to just collapse the housing market completely? You're out of your mind. You have lost your marbles. No, the task in front of us is much more difficult than that. You want the easy button. There is no easy button. The task in front of us is, how do we maintain asset prices or shunt everybody into a protected asset class while everything else reprices, while simultaneously bringing wages up to meet the new asset price level or threshold? You wouldn't care if a new house was $400,000 if your $70,000 actually had the purchasing power of $175,000. The numbers are they're just like, these are widgets. You just kind of get used to something being like a $20 burrito. Who cares if the burrito is $20 if the median wage is $150,000 or something? On that note, I got a little bit of commentary along these lines here. So, let me drill down into this a little bit. Matt Walsh says the establishment Republicans have arrived to inform you that if you're worried about grocery prices, you're just a whiny doomer, and really it's fine that prices have gone up by 30% because at least you're better off than someone who lived 125 years ago, blah, 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 blah. And Matt Forney said, hey, retard, while you're busy churning out over paying 5 cents more for milk, give me some concrete policy ideas for solving this supposed problem. Because right now, you're headed down the same retarded path of state-owned Mamdani marts. You see how this horseshoe comes together. Richard Darlington says, love your stuff, Forney, but this kind of shit makes you look like you're paid. He says, yeah, I'm the one being paid and not Matt Walsh, who is straight up lying that groceries are 30% more expensive. They obviously are not. The only thing that's significantly more expensive is beef, but that's been a problem for years. And Irrational Basis says, COVID fucked up grocery prices, but this has been the case since Biden was president, but now it's becoming a talking point suddenly. And what's the solution these people present? Price controls? What can realistically get grocery prices down fast enough to benefit politically? The answer is nothing short of price controls or increased food stamps. Any solution realistically will work gradually and allow food prices to become cheaper over time. This is exactly it. If you want the emergency fix everything button, the emergency fix everything button breaks more things than it fixes. The only solution is to allow these things to work their way out, primarily through wage growth. That's the problem. You naturally want things to get a little bit more expensive over time. You want that continued inflation. You want a small bit of it in under the current system for the duration of the present system. What you need wages to keep up with that, and they haven't. Wages have been artificially depressed. So you have to take the depressive effects away and allow wages to climb, and then you also invest in the things that make the wages climb faster. But this doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 18 months. You're not going to fix what was fucked up for a century in 18 months. You're going to look for indicators like this that it's coming. Matt Forney says every right-wing influencer claiming that groceries are unaffordable because of the Iran war or whatever is lying. Actual inflation numbers show that food inflation only went up by 3% in the past year. The change is far smaller than what Biden did in 2022. Food prices have been high. They have been high. But here's the other thing. We now have the luxury of accessing higher quality food, and that higher quality food is more expensive as well. But here's the thing where everyone splits over this false dichotomy, and you've got to be able to hold both of these ideas in your head at the same time. There are higher quality forms of food that are more readily available to people. Not whole food specifically, but that sort of thing. People get used to being able to buy organic and buy custom foods. There's a wider expanse of things that are on the grocery shelves. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. But the prices got way more expensive for everything. Plus, people got accustomed to being able to be a lot pickier with the things that they buy. And they've settled into that. Now, this is what America should have. We should have that right. We should have that ability. Jeff!
I'm worth 10,000 burritos. I'll take my top-notch Floyd now.
How do we get arguing about burritos, by the way? Why not burgers? Why are we measuring by the cost of a burrito? We need to be measuring by the cost of burgers. This is America. So yeah, the solution with the majority of this is really just wages need to rise. Wages need to rise, wages need to rise, wages need to rise. And they need to rise on a relative basis. That's been the problem. Everything is rising, but wages are rising more slowly. So, over here, wages are rising more slowly, so they're getting left behind. So what you need everything else to rise less quickly, which it has. Actual inflation numbers, food inflation only went up by 3% in the past year. So that's being slowed back down while wages are being pulled up. But this is not going to happen immediately. You can't sit around and wait for this to happen and then be like, okay, now I can stop complaining about it. Beef prices have been fucked for a while. You can't fix that overnight. The Iran war is not moving the needle on that at all. This guy says that would explain it. These influencers eat steak every meal, so they think grocery prices are going up when they're not. Which, honestly, like, I don't think that this, like, I think they should be eating steak every meal. I think they should be eating robust amounts of beef. But if you're eating robust amounts of beef and the beef market got fucked by Biden and those things can only be changed through the life cycles of cows, then yeah, there's nothing you can do to lower the price of beef or to accommodate the downstream effects of the increased price of beef. Apart from wage growth.
Chimichangas are by far the superior American food. It has been mothballed by the deep state for making authentic Mexican cuisine obsolete.
Chimichangas. Chimichangas were mothballed by the deep state for making authentic Mexican cuisine obsolete. That's great. That's great. Kate says the problem isn't even the price of food. It's why did we allow our food to get this fucked up in the first place? There shouldn't be an organic and non-organic category. All our food should be organic, like it has throughout all of history before we decided to prioritize shelf stability over human health. Very good point. Very good point. You think about this. When, my mind just went a whole bunch of different places. So, with the mass introduction of robots, as over the next couple of decades, we get used to the existence of a modern day programmable slave class that works for us. We're talking about decentralizing the grid, decentralizing communications platforms. What about decentralizing food production? Having a robot that's programmed to manage your farm for you. Having a little micro farm where you can grow your own food. See, here's where the introduction of robots is going to force a reckoning with zoning laws and, HOA standards and all this sort of thing. Because now suddenly it's not just like, oh, some people might want to have chickens in their backyard. It's that I literally want to be able to like build a full-scale garden and everything. And there's going to be innovations made in how to optimize a small space for growing food. These are whole industries that are going to emerge as a consequence of this. Matt Forney says we have an emerging picture. Right-wing influencers think Americans are mad over gas prices because they live in blue states where gas taxes are sky high. They think groceries are expensive because they eat steak every night. Laughably out-of-touch people. I think there's probably some element of truth to that and some element of Matt Forney just jabbing people because he likes doing it. But I do think that there is one valuable observation in here is that the difference in experience between right-wing people in red states and right-wing people in blue states. And I've noticed that there is a distinct temperament difference with many of them. There are exceptions, of course, on both sides, but by and large, right-wing people in blue states are experiencing a much worse quality of life, and everything is much more expensive for them, and it skews their perspective about the country at large. Right-wing people who live in red states are, generally speaking, much better off. So their perspective about, there's like pluses and minuses to both of these things. So the right-wing people in red states can underestimate how bad things have gotten across the country. But also, right-wing people in blue states overestimate how bad things have gotten. And they underestimate the sheer inertia of America. They think all of America is functioning like blue state America is. And no, it's not. There's kind of an interesting commentary here too, where like right-wing sort of being more associated with rural and left-wing being more associated with urban. But then the blue states generally have they're more urban dominated. And so then you have like the right-wing person in the urban environment. There's interesting things to explore, but I've still got more here. So we're going to keep going. I mentioned this yesterday. This is Mr. Sutton Pownall. Pownall, what a name. A gravedigger with his wife Joyce and their 5 children in a 150-year-old house at number 2 Court, Dickinson Street, Oldham. 1st of June, 1962. Look at all that white privilege, this person says. 1962. Now, first of all, I think this is probably commentary on what the Second World War really did to the UK. But also, this wasn't like that super far removed from the experience in the United States, not far removed from this. He lived at this 150-year-old home. The family shared one bedroom, one kitchen, and one living room. They shared a key for communal toilets near to where the dustbins are stacked. His children are Susan, 6, Steve, 5, Sandra, 4, Mark, 3, and baby Gary, aged 8 months. The dude was working as a gravedigger, living in this tiny little house in these conditions, and cranked out 5 kids. O.W. Root says, people often forget how long real poverty remained in the first world. This is the 1960s. You can find similar pictures of some rural places in the U.S. around the same time. This would be considered quite extreme by today's standards in the Western world. And we're talking about in the lifetime of our parents, in the lifetime of maybe some of the people who are listening to this right now. I know we got some of our old heads out there. We appreciate our Labian boomers. Yeah, so then this graph sort of captures it here. Let me actually go back here. This graph sort of captures that. This is U.S. homes lacking complete plumbing by state from 1960 to 1990. In 1960, Mississippi had almost 50% of homes lacking complete plumbing. That's the blue line here at the top. Yeah, so the blue line up here, this is Mississippi. In 1960, almost 50% of homes lacked complete plumbing. Kentucky was at 40%. Alaska in 1990 was still high. Alaska was still at 12% in 1990. But you can see all these are all the different states here, all converging down. So California was at 5%. So 5% of homes in California lacked complete plumbing. Now, it'd be really interesting to see this continuing. I don't even know if they would keep track of these sorts of things anymore, because that's how it's become it's like expected that homes are going to have complete plumbing.
Tips need to go up faster than wages, and wages need to go up faster than grocery bills. Cutting $1 trillion of welfare, waste, fraud, and abuse, wink, wink, giggle, giggle, will accomplish this.
Waste, fraud, and abuse, giggle, giggle.
Right-wing people in blue states, a.k.a. future camp staff of the month, 20 months running. Did you see the Dominion Society board member who had a history of doing gay shit and he resigned without a fuss? Also, these people are a hallmark of poverty, and yet they own their house.
That's a really interesting thought, too. Yeah. They were a hallmark of poverty and yet owned their house. So those things could coexist. Now, today, I think our standards for poverty have just changed. And it should be that way. I don't think that it should be acceptable to tell people that they need to be willing to live in this. At the same time, for some people, they may need to be willing to live in this. Or some more modern version of this. For some people, it is the right time of their life. There was times in my life where it would have been better off if I would have lived in whatever the 15 or 20 years ago equivalent of this would be. And you can live in extreme poverty and still crank out babies. So I'd be really interested to see, if we continued this from 1990 up to today, how many of these lines have started to go back up again. When you think about some of the places of like inner cities and immigrant communities and stuff that don't have consistent utilities.
Everyone wants to go off grid until the hot water goes out.
Yeah, no kidding. Speaking of going off grid and hot water, go to chudconevent.com. Buy your tickets. Come spend a weekend roughing it. But don't worry. You could pay a little extra and get hot showers in case rolling around in the woods with other men for a weekend. If you're willing to do that, but you won't go so far as doing it without a hot shower, if that's the thing that pushes you over the edge, then you can add that upgrade to your ticket. ChudConEvent.com. Make sure you get your tickets. This will be Labor Day weekend in Northern Virginia. We will be, it's like summer camp meets gaming convention meets music festival. It is the Cyberbullies' first ever IRL event. And also, go to beta.ewbsx.com. Beta.ewbsx.com. Come be a beta and experience the new EWBSX platform. Okay, so what else did I have here? What time is it? 9:15. All right, we'll keep it going here for a little bit longer. This was interesting. So this person posted this receipt. 1966, purchasing an Impala. Look at this. Look at this price. 2-door sport coupe, red cloth trim. You got the heavy-duty battery, tinted glass. An AM/FM radio, boys. Metallic brakes. Total price, $3,882. This was in Carnegie, Pennsylvania. Is it Carnegie or Carnegie? Now, Matt Dines here says, sir, those were silver dollars back in 1966. $1 equaled 0.77344 ounces. Hang on. Tips are coming through, and the thing is asking me to refresh. All right, there we go. Jeff!
Nigga, I make my own grid when necessary.
You need to be grid making, Anon. Each of us can be our own grid. Nodes, network nodes is a thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. Stupid fucking thing. Remigration attorney.
Rolling around with other men is only gay if you shower with hot water.
So true. So true. That's right. If you, as long as you stick to the cold water, or just be completely safe and don't shower at all. Just forego the showers completely. You actually develop a coating. We call this a man coating that protects your skin and prevents you from actually engaging in skin-to-skin contact. So it literally can't possibly be gay. It's actually a scientific impossibility. Okay, so it's 1966. Silver dollars was a dollar equaled about 0.77344 ounces. At today's market price, that silver dollar would be worth about $48 in purchasing power with today's dollar. That new Chevy Impala actually cost your grandpa about 3,000 ounces of silver, which is about $186,000 at today's exchange rate. Think about that. So buying a new Chevy Impala here in 1966, if the value between the dollar and silver had maintained, it would be the equivalent of $186,000 today. Well, you can no longer get a new Impala at any price. You can easily find a good new four-door sedan today around $30,000, less than 500 ounces of silver. Money is a constantly moving target, but that invoice is not necessarily the nominal disaster it appears at first glance. So this is the sort of thing where it's like, you got all these different, you move this variable and then you got to move that variable. This one's relative to that one. But 1966, spending $3,800 on an Impala was the equivalent of spending $186,000 today. And today, you can get a new four-door sedan. Now, you're probably not going to get one that's 425 horsepower V8 turbojet, but you can get a new four-door sedan for today for about $30,000. This guy says this works great as a reference for how little money is now worth, but in 1966, the average salary in the U.S. was $7,600 per year. I don't think the average salary now is $349,600, which would have been expected, assuming wage gains matched inflation. It's actually $67,000 rounding up. So you see how you have multiple different variables that are all diverging from each other. And so then the game is bringing these variables back into alignment, but they're all independent variables. But I think this sort of thing is going to become much more relevant over the next, it could be just over the next couple of years, over the next handful of years, something like that, as we begin transitioning to this new monetary system. couple of points I got here from Andrew Isker. He said, 10 years from now, some of you will be like, President Vance has only denaturalized 1 million people this year. He's betrayed us. Time to let it all burn down. And this is a brilliant tweet. This was bait. This was bait for the guys who are just angry about everything, but don't actually know how anything works. They're just angry. They want to yell about how angry they are. And so they're like, denaturalizing 1 million people? Well, that's like the bare minimum. There's so many. We got all these people we got to denaturalize. Why hasn't he already denaturalized 10 million people? He says, many of the replies to this prove my point. Guys who are ready to Darren Bushmill themselves. I think it was actually Aaron Bushnell, but I kind of like the idea of just slaughtering his name. Guys who are ready to Darren Bushmill themselves in the entire country because a theoretical Vance in his third term, LOL, only denaturalized 1 million. To put this in perspective, in the entire history of the United States, we have denaturalized vastly fewer than 1 million people. In the entire history of the United States. Yet in this hypothetical scenario, a truly epochal change where 1 million a year have their citizenship stripped is deemed not enough. So there is no political solution. You're not voting your way out of this, et cetera, et cetera. And we need to hand the country over to the left to import tens of millions per year. Many guys just want to give up and dress their surrender up as being based and way smarter than you dumb plan trusters. There is only one mechanism through which the nation will survive. And that is via the GOP and Trump and Vance specifically. This is a very, very basic truth. And if you cannot accept this truth, you are not cut out for this shit. And once again, the world needs ditch diggers. Find your ditch, start digging. There is only one mechanism through which the nation will survive, and that is via the GOP and Trump and Vance specifically. We are up against an if this isn't apparent to you at this point, you are mentally ill. This is a form of mental illness. Being unable to perceive obvious truths like this. We're going to put it into the DSM. We're up against an administrative state that has had 80 plus years to entrench itself, a highly politicized judiciary that's been stocked with radicals for at least the last 3 decades, and a legislature where the establishment geriatrics are very slowly being replaced with stone-cold American nationalists. We're in a vastly better place than 10 years ago, where even closing the border was deemed impossible, much less actually deporting anyone from the country. We need 100 million deportations, obviously, but even getting a few million is a monumental change. Yes, there are setbacks and errors, like the Iran war, his words, not mine. There will be more setbacks and errors to come. But pressing on, continuing to signal both support and an expectation for more results is the only realistic path forward. Anyone who says otherwise is committed to defeat. Yes, Slutty Milk, a guy who read and promoted the merits of Camp of the Saints is in charge of immigration policy. A Jew with a single-minded Hebrew hatred for foreigners is in charge of immigration. With the Jews, you win. Yeah, Slutty Milk says, Stephen Miller runs immigration policy. Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller. Have you heard of him? Let me get some Millers in the chat. We're going to make this look like an abortion for a minute. Show me the Millers. We're going to do a little test of how far delayed things are. Homeless Nomad says, I didn't even know we had a denaturalization process in the law until a year ago. It was so rare. He says, yeah, this is great. We've denaturalized like 50 people in all of U.S. history. Slutty Milk says, oh, remigration attorney.
Grave digging is a kind of ditch digging. And
Yes.
it pays better. Become a memorializing terrain engineer and make $3 silver.
Hell yes. A memorializing terrain engineer. That's so good. Memorializing terrain engineer. Let this man write your resumes for you. I was a memorializing terrain engineer. What does that mean? It means I dug ditches, motherfucker. Slutty Milk says, Trump isn't going to save the country in 4 years. I wonder then if maybe perhaps possibly we should try to win again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Yes. Yes. I think we should try that. As a great man once said.
We're going to win
win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is what they call a truc. So many beautiful Norwoods in chat. Not sure I can fully grasp it. Slutty Milk says the chat is exactly what Stephen Miller wants America to look like. 100 million pale Norwoods. That's Stephen Miller's ideal America. Okay, what did I have here? Oh yeah, shout out to reactionary Phil here. Anyone have any idea who this reactionary Phil feller is? He posted this the other day, quote tweeting my quote tweet here that I talked about Cernovich. Republican voters are checked out, yada yada yada, and he says nearly all the comments on this being my tweet, or all the people like it is true that it's all lost, everyone's checked out, everyone I talk to, they all hate Trump, they're all mad. He says, nearly all the comments on this are revealing of a rot within whatever the right is. It is cynicism masking cowardice. This is exactly it. These people are cowards. Weak-willed, pusillanimous cowards. And so they project this cynicism as if they're not just scared shitless. There's a reason why these people can only see themselves in the role of South Africa and Rhodesia. If this were really the end and this is the furthest extent of your reaction, you deserve hell on earth. This here is a truc. If this was actually the end, if things were actually as dire as the rhetoric, then every single person engaging that rhetoric deserves that end. They deserve to suffer the way that they're suffering. They've got exactly the government that they deserve. For their own cowardice. Not one of you have done a damn thing other than bitch at other men because you castrated yourself long ago. Not one of you has organized anything to engineer the change you want. Oh, you can't organize because Zion Dawn? Before that, it was Zion Biden, then Zion Dawn 1.0, then Zion Obama, then Zion Bush, and so it goes. When is the right time? When the fight that someone fought for you is over? What is this cuck fantasy? Fuck all this talk about World War II vets not dying for what became of the West. If they saw what you would become, they wouldn't have fought. You wouldn't die for you. Whew!
Boner alert.
Well posted, Lord Breezy. This is Lord Breezy, by the way. One of our great Labians is also a magnificent poster. Go follow him at Reactionary Phil on X. Now, I have a little something here that I want to share with you guys. This interview I listened to last night. I strongly recommend you guys go listen to the whole thing. I'm going to play some clips of it for you. This was Peter Diamandis talking to Michael Kratsios. So who is Michael Kratsios? The name of the interview is How the White House Plans to 10x Scientific Productivity. Well, this here is Michael Kratsios. Michael John Kotsakis Kratsios, born November 7th, 1986. He's an American business executive and political advisor who has served as the director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy and the science advisor to the president since 2025. He served as the acting undersecretary of defense for research and engineering from 2020 to 2021, so at the end of Trump's previous term, and as the chief technology officer of the United States from 2019 to 2021. This guy's 2 years older than I am. Kratsios graduated from Princeton, worked as an analyst at Barclays Capital and the Lyford Group International. Then he served as the chief financial officer of Peter Thiel's Clarion Capital. He later became a principal at Thiel Capital and served as Thiel's chief of staff. After Donald Trump's victory in the 2016 presidential election, Thiel hired Kratsios to work for Trump's presidential transition. In March of 2017, Trump appointed Kratsios to serve as Deputy Chief Technology Officer of the United States, the only employee in the Chief Technology Officer's office. So the Chief Technology Officer didn't even have an employee in the office. So in May of 2021, he became the Managing Director and Head of Strategy at Scale AI. And then in December of 2024, Trump named him as his nominee for Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy. The following month, he became the Science Advisor to the President and was confirmed by the Senate as the Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy in March of 2025. He was raised in South Carolina, and at Princeton, he interned for Lindsey Graham. He served as the editor-in-chief and the president of Business Today. His collegiate research largely concerned economic voting. The very interesting fellow. And then in April of 2025, Kratsios outlined a 3-point plan to improve the technology industry in the United States by protecting intellectual property, preventing U.S. adversaries from entering its infrastructure and supply chain, and enforcing export controls. After the United States brokered an Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agreement in August, he met with officials from Armenia and Azerbaijan on technology exchanges between the two countries. He has advocated for lessened regulations on emerging technologies, particularly drones. In May of 2018, he told representatives of several companies that the first Trump administration would not heavily regulate artificial intelligence. He criticized EU regulators' plan to regulate artificial intelligence in February of 2020. Emperor Atreides.
You should show the video of Hassan on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, The Fallen State. It was hilarious watching Jesse make Hassan look like a total retard.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Jesse Lee Peterson and Hassan talking to each other. I am, okay, I've got that bookmarked. Now, I didn't even know such a thing existed. Yeah, here you go.
Amazing.
Kratsios criticized EU regulators' plan to regulate artificial intelligence in February of 2020. In September of 2025, Kratsios rejected the UN Security Council's call for regulations on artificial intelligence. He criticized Huawei's connections to the Chinese government. In April 2026, the second Trump administration published a memorandum written by Kratsios accusing China of, quote, exploiting American expertise and innovation by allegedly stealing artificial intelligence technology. And he has argued that the private sector should spend more money on scientific research and that the federal government spends too much on the bureaucracy. So this is the guy talking to Peter Diamandis. We're getting a little Greek overload here. And there's a bunch of great stuff in this, but there's one particular section here talking about AI and the Genesis Project and some of his speculative ideas for moving things forward with the Trump administration. And it got me chimping last night. So let me speed this up just a little bit. And here we go.
So I want to return for a second before we head to the New Golden Age and Genesis mission to the speed of change. So a mutual friend, Elon, friend of the pod, when I interviewed him a few months ago, he's like, we're going to see double-digit growth in the GDP in the next 18, 24 months, triple-digit growth in 5 years. And then he was on The Economist. I don't know if you saw the clip saying we're going to be, by 2036, basically post-capitalist. We're going to have anything you could possibly want will be delivered by AI and robotics. Now, honestly, I think Elon is the most brilliant engineer on the planet. I think most everybody agrees on that. And his predictions are always directionally correct. The timing may be off a little bit. But the speed of change that he's projecting sort of breaks every system. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, A, could you imagine that speed of change? And, is the appropriate members of cabinet thinking about what the economy looks like in that situation?
It's hard for me even to kind of wrap my head around kind of that velocity of change. But
it's kind of what I'm talking about too. Like when I was talking about the collapse of the old world and the rise of the new world, and they're like ships passing in the night, and you actually want to make sure that those ships pass each other for quite a while. You don't want them to past each other because civilization is just not equipped, especially after spending, at least a few to several decades being gradually strangled to death. Having everything, like just-in-time supply chains is a great example of this, where we've been enclosed in this fixed system and we're wringing out every last little bit of inefficiency from the system, but it's staying fixed. has fixed boundaries on it. Well, eventually you run out of efficiencies to maximize for. And if the system is built on this premise, when it hits its limits, then it just caves in on itself. So you need to break outside the existing system, and you have to start building out into the frontier and giving the system something to expand into, maintaining that efficiency maximization capacity, but ensuring that doesn't become a bug.
But maybe I don't quite ascribe to that particular speed, but I do think things are changing, and I think our cabinet and leadership in the White House recognizes that and is getting in front of it. I think as you probably saw, Secretary Bessent was very involved in some of the post-Mythos activities that happened in the USG, and I think that's a great example of saying, like, look, like if we have a super
talking about Claude Mythos. Jonathan Hemingway over on YouTube said a little bit ago, he said, I've been telling people that we will start growing lettuce in our living rooms and cutting it for daily salads. The tech is going to flatten everything. Think about, like, there's so much leisure time that's going to be opened up, but it's not going to be handled with leisure. It's going to be handled with innovation. People are going to spend that time innovating and beginning to build things for themselves. It's going to be so wildly disruptive, but it's going to happen slowly and then all at once. And we're kind of in between that slowly and then all at once. One big thing is actually having both the funding and the regulatory absence, like the removal of regulatory barriers that permits people to innovate on these sorts of things without having it all be funneled through a bunch of bureaucracy and paperwork and the nanny government. And that's something he gets talking about here in just a sec.
Super capable cyber model that in the hands of the wrong actor could pose a risk to our systemically important financial institutions. We have to approach this seriously and quickly, and we addressed it. And I think that's the kind of action that I think you see a lot of the leaders in the administration taking when it comes to these rapid changes.
Oh. All right, let's turn to Genesis and Golden Age.
Mm-hmm.
In your paper, you outline a series of challenges that need to be solved in the age of AI, and I'd like to hit on each one at a time.
Yeah,
because they're really important. And just again, as I was saying before we start here, I was a kid in the candy store reading the Golden Age report. It was like you went much further than I expected, sort of naming ideas, and we'll get to those. So the first point you make is that scientific productivity has been declining despite larger budgets. Irum's law, right? Moore's law spelled backwards. That's sort of like the discovery per unit dollar has dropped. Mm-hmm. Why? What's going on here? And we got better tools.
Yeah, to me, I think we have been unable to, or just don't unable to change the way that we conduct science. And I think this goes back to kind of one of the.
You could see him really like picking his words very carefully here. Oh, we've been unable to change these things. It's almost like these industries around scientific innovation have been captured by regulators and cartelized. But he's a representative of the administration, and so he's speaking in more, a little more detached terms.
One of the main sort of reasons why we wrote this report. The president wrote me a letter after I was confirmed, and essentially kind of like charged us with how do we revitalize the science enterprise. And we went back and kind of thought about it, and kind of the data that you talked about, kind of this declining productivity was kind of one of the first things that we looked at. And we asked ourselves, why is it? Like, we have better technology than we ever have. Our budgets are more than we ever have. And I think it's most probably relevant in the biomedical field, where
this declining productivity goes hand in hand with the lack of wage growth. Like, that's like, these are almost definitionally, these are like two ways of describing the same thing. Trust Landstar says, get rid of ag regs and I'll grow a shrimp farm in my shed and sell it to Walmart and golf all day. I'll grow a shrimp nuke. Here's the thing. The future that we are rapidly, hurtling into is a future in which everybody realizes they can do something like this at the same time. Grow a shrimp farm in their shed, sell it to Walmart, and golf all day. So what happens when suddenly you have a mass rush of people going into shrimp farming? They realize, oh, hey, actually, this is easy and cheap, and I have a slave laborer here that can manage these things for me, and I have an endless ability to solve problems with it. You're going to suddenly get a glut of shrimp farmers. And so when you have that glut of shrimp farmers, people are going to be like, oh, okay, well, we don't need shrimp farmers. What else do we need? What else could I do? You're going to be able to monetize your hobbies, and you're going to be able to invent new hobbies and monetize them at the same time. This is what, when they talk about hitting like a post scarcity point, I don't like scarcity is never going to go away. We're never actually going to get to post scarcity because human desire is going to expand beyond the resource allotment. And so it's going to drive human beings further out into the frontier and coming up with new things that are then scarce that you have to solve the problem of it. So it's just moving the problem to a different level. But what it's leaving behind in its wake is massive abundance.
The NIH budget now is ballooned to almost like $45 billion, yet the cost of drugs is more expensive than ever. Kind of list goes on. And I think
beer macadamia beef. The Mark Zuckerberg, where he's like trying to engineer ways to come up with like a sort of like American Wagyu, even using macadamia beer, like that sort of thing. So this is going to be wonderful for the I don't know, like the personality that loves to like loves wines or craft beer, where now you're going to have like all different types of like craft meats where people can be like, okay, you're going to do the macadamia beer, I'm going to do the almond wine beef or whatever, you know, like there's all these different variables and different sliders you can start moving around, and suddenly everyone has access to the sliders.
One conclusion we had was like, we just are not experimenting enough in the way that we conduct science. We're doing the same thing over and over again and just putting more money towards it and believing that the outcomes are going to get better. And I think one of the sort of the main sort of core theses of the whole Golden Age report is we have to be more experimental and more ambitious about testing out new ideas. And why I found it so particularly relevant and shocking in the world of science is you would think that in science, those people would be the most interested and the most excited to try different ways of doing science. Yet, funny enough, that community doesn't want anything to change. They want the system to be exactly the way it was 30 years ago.
Because science has now become a cabal of bureaucrats and administrators. And there's a bunch of different reasons for that. It ties into tenure. It also ties into the grant program, which is something he starts talking about here in just a moment. Lord Breezy says, my classmate literally built a side hustle using AI to build a website that points people to get onto TRT, and he gets a percentage of how many people he gets to a clinic. What a patriot. That's what I'm talking about. You could just spin up a side hustle. And if that one, the ability to spin up a side hustle is going to expand dramatically. And pretty soon, you're going to get more and more people. Like, these are trends that are already underway, but people think of them as kind of like ephemeral or something. Like, I support my family by live streaming on the internet. This is a completely unthinkable career before. Completely unthinkable careers are going to emerge. And when you and like Kate here says, the shrimp is treated right? Fish farming as it currently stands is barbaric and bad for you. So these are the other sorts of problems that can be resolved this way. Instead of just being like, hey, fish farmers, you should be better. You can be like, well, I'm going to be a fish farmer. The cost of the barrier to entry to get into fish farming is going to be drastically reduced. So you get lots of other people who can become fish farmers, and they can do it ethically and keep their costs reduced. And local grocery stores can start to buy their goods from the local community instead of having to outsource other places. What else does this do? This decentralizes the economy. Keeps it less like consolidated and funneled through specific avenues where if that avenue breaks, everything else downstream breaks. So you're going to get an increased global connectivity, but also an increased local stability or local robustness.
The way I say it, if you're an expert in something and there's a revolutionary breakthrough, you're no longer the expert at it. So there's a disincentive for doing that. Could it be regulatory bloat? Could it be, legal bloat? Could it be just the paperwork that's developed over time?
It is. I think it's all of the above. So some things that we talk about in the report are around research burdens. So I think there was a very well-known study that the National Academies put out a few years ago that essentially said something like 45% of the time that a researcher spends is to do the administrative work associated with their grant. And that is one of the most depressing statistics I can think of. These scientists are the crown jewels of our country. We want them to be doing their work 100% of the time.
Same thing in healthcare.
Yes.
Physicians are spending all their time filling out paperwork.
Yeah. And I think that...
And this is a great way to sell this too. Like scientists, you're so esteemed. We love our scientists, don't we? You guys are just so brilliant. We want you doing science. We don't want you being bureaucrats. We don't want you to be spending all of your time focused on the paperwork, and then like that whole bureaucratic apparatus becomes like a thing that you're tied into, and you're incentivized to maintain your station within. Let's just do away with all of that, and you can focus on your science.
I think that the regulatory stuff does kind of matter too. And I think one example that's very close to my heart and has been one of my pet projects for a long time is how do we bring back supersonic flight to America?
Yes.
And an example of that is it's kind of a regulatory issue where in the U.S. There has essentially been a speed limit for flights over land. So essentially there was, if you're flying over Mach 1, it's just not allowed anymore.
Because of the sonic boom and the concerns, right?
And the reality is, I think research has shown, and I think Boom Supersonic, a company, showed that they're able to fly over Mach 1 without creating a sonic boom. So our regulations, the way it stands, disincentivize them from ever trying to fly over Mach 1 because they'll never be able to. So again, due to the president and executive order that he signed, we are now changing that rule to create a noise limit rather than a speed limit.
Yeah,
if you can keep it under Mach 1, if you can keep it quiet, fly. Just fly.
I love that. I mean, the breakthrough, the policy changes on both supersonic flight and on eVTOLs. Aviation industry.
Oh, yeah, okay, so all this is about aviation. Thank you for subscribing, Georgie Castriotti. Haven't seen you in a while, man. Good to see you there. Jonathan Hemingway said, once everyone starts producing everything all at once, there is no more Walmarts. We all become our own Walmarts. Right. So as you can see this coming down the line, obviously any forward-thinking person with a stake in Walmart is going to either want this to not happen, or they're going to want it to happen as slowly as possible so they can try to get ahead of it or minimize the damage it's going to do to them. Which then might tell you why there is so much fear porn surrounding this whole notion of AI. And so you get the people who are like, they see themselves as like, oh, I'm the little guy. I'm the revolutionary speaking truth to power. No data centers. Data centers are tyranny. The absolute definition of useful idiots.
The policy changes on both supersonic flight and on eVTOLs. The aviation industry had been stuck for 50 years. And so unleashing in that way. One of the second challenges you note here is young talent waiting too long before they're given a chance to implement their bold ideas.
The thing with aviation is just like, there's no reason why we shouldn't already have like mass drone delivery. And think of the downstream impacts on this. If suddenly you get supersonic flight becomes more normalized, so you can travel faster around the country, if deliveries are made more and more via drone, you have fewer vehicles on the road. So the vehicles that are on the road can be dedicated towards other things. This has an impact on infrastructure, like the degradation of highways, on fuel costs, on you start running down the downstream effects of starting to tweak some of these things. They compound on themselves really, really quickly.
Our funding, publishing, and credit system was built for a world of human-paced discovery, and I could not agree with you more.
Yeah. The challenge I think a lot of young people face is they're kind of stuck in this zone of the way science was done long time ago, before the internet even existed in some ways. And everyone's kind of stuck through this process of needing to do research and then trying to get the research published in a journal, and then you have to do that a number of times before you can get tenure and so on. And I think the structure tends to, I think, not be the way that is conducive to discovery. It's the way to like how you succeed in an academic
structured system, right?
Yeah. And if that and I think there's huge opportunities to kind of reform that. To me, I think NIH is always an example of this. And I think this is very bipartisan. I think the statistic I heard today, which was shocking, is that the median age of an intramural NIH scientist, so this is a scientist at NIH who's doing research in NIH, not getting a grant out, is 71.
Oh my God.
When I heard, I couldn't even believe it. That is crazy.
And the average age of a Nobel laureate's prize-winning work is in their mid-20s.
In their 20s, yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
And I think we've created these systems where we're somehow okay with that. And then we look.
This is the to his credit, this is the sort of thing that Eric Weinstein has been banging on about for a long time. He coined the term. Which one is it? It's the egos, embedded growth obligations, where you have things like a law firm or tenure at a university, where the system is designed to perpetually expand, constantly be adding more and more and more. But eventually you have more lawyers than you know what to do with. And then you get partners who get entrenched in a place, and you have associates who are trying to make partner, but they can't. And you've got people starting to back up going through law school who are also trying to do this. So each of these industries gets smothered, or it gets like overfilled, and you get a backlog, and then it starts getting smothered and basically shut down, and they pull the ladder up behind them, and then scientific innovation just disappears because there's the structural incentive to do it is gone. It's become much riskier. The barrier to entry is so much higher, and then there's so much regulation that you can't do it on your own. And so we've just been stagnating. This is the Peter Thiel coming through in him. We've been innovating in the world of bits, but not in the world of atoms. So yes, Mr. Sue, air highways for drones and sky cops. Yes, this is a bullet that needs to be bitten. We need to figure out how it's going to work when you have flying vehicles that are not airplanes, that are operating at lower levels. And then there needs to be a way of managing all that traffic. But it's just like, oh, well, that's like dangerous and it's foreign and weird and stuff, so we're not going to do that at all. But the time is coming where it has to be done. And so finally we've got an administration that's getting these sorts of regulations pulled out. And then he's talking here about the grant process.
We look in the mirror and somehow we tell ourselves, well, everything's doing great if we just give it a little more money. And it's like, that's not how you solve these problems.
And that leads to the bloat. So you identified a bunch of great mechanisms for driving progress in the golden age. I'm going to hit on 4 of them that I think I'm excited about. The first one is long duration grants. 5-year grants funded on day 1.
Yeah.
Talk about that one, please.
So to me, I think grant duration is something that people don't talk about enough. Again, over time, we've come to this sort of like zone of comfort where most government grants are roughly in the 18-month period. And that's just because of the way it works with academic calendars and just how easy or quickly we can, as a government, be able to review these grants and adjudicate them and give them out. But that's not the pace of scientific discovery. There are certain scientific endeavors that are quick and short, and it's a small experiment that only takes 3 or 4 months to look at and you can get done. And there are other ones, like you talk about, that actually require a longer period of time, that you want a brilliant scientist to be able to explore an idea, which is going to take a little bit of time to sort out.
And focus on that versus another grant application.
Exactly, because most of these guys, after they've gotten their first grant, they're already working on their second before they even finish the work on the first, because they have to keep the pace going. So to us, we believe that you have to, and this is, again, how do we support scientists? At the core of the entire New Golden Age report is everything we do is in service of the scientists. And this is a perfect example of it. It's like there's certain scientists that want shorter duration grants, and there's some ideas that need 5 years to play out. And we as a government need to make our money available to be able to be in the service of those scientists who are going to be making the great breakthroughs.
This is exactly the sort of thing when I first started digging into the whole PayPal mafia thing and realized that the tech right was going to become a thing. It was coming on the heels of having spent a long time, like reading Curtis Yarvin and James Burnham and this sort of thing, and being familiar with the term managerialism and the idea of the managerial state. And I realized that they're on a collision course with each other. The so-called tech right and the managerial state are not going to coexist. They cannot coexist. These guys want to build shit. Their entire identity is built around how can we develop and innovate faster? Their whole life is all wrapped up in developing and innovating, and regulators are like the greatest criminals to them. So I realized when you get these guys paired up with the Trump perspective, we're going to see an absolute explosion in productivity. Now you're going to get like regulations, generally speaking, speaking in a very general sense, there is a place for regulations. He talks earlier on in the conversation. He talked about I had Grok summarize the transcript for me. He framed technologies as either born free, which he says internet style, meaning the government should largely just stay out of the way, or they're technologies that are born in captivity, like drones or AI medical diagnostics. The government must actively clear regulatory paths so that those benefits can reach people. So something like drones can't just be just free roam because of existing airline regulations and just the fact that you don't want people crashing drones into each other or flying them into planes or this sort of thing. So the government is inevitably going to have a strong say in these sorts of technologies. So he calls them born in captivity versus the born free ones. And there's a lot of born free ones that the government needs to get out of the way of. And for these sorts of things.
The next idea you put forward, which I love, is fast grants. A few pages, reviewed under a month, sized for the proof of concept.
Yeah, and I think we saw this.
Oh, yeah. Grillionaires and billionaires. Very good, Slutty Milk. We've got grillionaires and we've got billionaires.
And a lot of excitement around this. And we've seen this historically around times of crisis. And I think this really came to the fore during COVID. And Tyler Cowen and others came together and pooled some capital and actually did this on the side themselves. We're making grant decision in a matter of like hours for people who are submitting to work on problems related to COVID. But there's no reason it should be restricted only in times of crisis. There are lots of ideas that if we're able to answer them, then it may unlock other things that we'd want to do later on.
And I can imagine, a lot of these scientists are probably using ChatGPT or Gemini or what it might be to write their grants. And I'm expecting that grant reviews will also use AI as a mechanism. Time should be massively compressed.
I think so.
Yes. The time compression aspect of this is another thing, another area where AI is going to, again, speaking of AI, just in a very broad sense, it's going to add this time compression effect to virtually not just every industry, but a huge number of the day-to-day activities within each industry. So think about what happens when you're not talking about just like taking regulations away, but you're talking about, in this case here, ensuring that scientific innovation can be done basically at the pace that you can raise money for it, versus having to spend forever jumping through all these hoops and writing on all these grants and submitting applications and waiting for them to come back. And the government's not really prioritizing it in the first place because they want to deny every single thing you present. Being able to instead, rapidly raise money for a specific thing and have it deployed immediately, so that the people who have these ideas, the people who are doing these things, the cracked white monster appreciators, have the leash taken off of them, and they can build literally as fast as they can build without spending all of their time in regulators' offices and doing paperwork and filing applications and all this tedium.
I think so. And I think a lot of thought is being taken at a lot of our funding agencies about how we can kind of accelerate that while sort of at all times keep kind of that meritocracy and that merit-based review gold standard.
Next one that I loved was experimentation with golden tickets. So what's a golden ticket?
Yeah, I think another issue of back to your question of why we stagnated. One reason a lot of people say is we're just not risk taking anymore. We sort of the least common denominator ideas are the ones typically get funded, and people who have kind of out there ideas, crazier ideas, things that may not work, but if they do work, it's pretty incredible. They're just not incentivized to even submit that application because they're not going to get the award. So the question is how do you get around that? How do you incentivize people to be a little more out there? And one is this golden ticket idea. And the concept here is that on a merit review panel, you may have 3 or 4 people. Each person on the panel gets 1, 2, 3 golden tickets. And with a golden ticket, you unilaterally can make the decision to fund a particular grant, independent of what the rest of the committee thinks of. And because of that, you get 2 things happen. One, you incentivize people to have a little crazier ideas because you have a chance that if one person believes in you, you'll go forward. The other is, I believe, and I think this may be the even better outcome, is you incentivize better people to be part of the review panels
because they have power,
you get a golden ticket. So rather than having people that are sort of mid-tier people who just do this, because I don't know what reasons, you kind of can bring even better people in to kind of do the reviews.
Right.
When the tech world enters this domain, the actual cracked innovators are enough of these panels and committees and boards and all of this stuff. We have to deal with this enough already in our lives. Let's just put the pedal to the metal and go. Mellon says unilateral action is a huge deal. Also, there's a huge incentive to get one of your guys on it. Yes. Just every single thing. When I hear random members of the administration come and talk about their bailiwick, their special all-consuming focus, I'm like, give me as many years in a row of these guys as we can possibly get.
So I do love that. It's interesting. I was talking to a professor at Harvard, I won't name him, who has been extremely successful. And he was saying that he was getting dinged in his reviews because he'd gotten too many grants and was too successful, and they needed to give other people a chance.
Yeah.
The whole peer review process is something that is unfortunately extraordinarily broken. I define the day before something is truly a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea, right? So where are we experimenting with crazy ideas? It's a challenge.
It is, and I think we have to do, and I think government correctly, I think, needs to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. And we have to be very thoughtful in the way that we develop our programs and we evaluate them. Yeah. And I think one piece of Golden Age is this concept of meta-science, the science of science, our ability to evaluate the ways that we're conducting science, the ways that we're doing funding, and evaluating whether or not they're working, and then course correcting when they're not. Like you and I in this podcast may really believe that doing fast track grants is a really great idea. But we need to run the experiment. Like, let's do some fast track grants and let's see what are the types that work, what are the ones that aren't, and then update. And the next iteration of them is even better. And we as a government just don't do that. We never do meta science. So one of the things we call in Golden Age is to launch meta science units, and those have been announced at places like NIH and SF already.
Nice.
Meta science units. Marty O'Donnell. We are living in Marty O'Donnell's Golden Age. Like everything is converging on Halo. Trust Planstar says they're attacking peer review. Thank God. Give this guy $1 billion. Give him $100 billion.
Okay, my favorite idea.
Yeah.
It falls into the crazy idea. I can't believe Michael actually wrote this down. You describe the use of prediction models, crowdsourced intelligence agents, and decentralized autonomous organizations to fund scientific research directly. I'm going to read.
This was the part where I started frickin' chimping. I was sitting down while I was listening to this. I was sitting down and eating something, and this segment got me like up pacing around like, oh, hell yes.
He wrote this down. You describe the use of prediction models, crowdsourced intelligence agents, and decentralized autonomous organizations to fund scientific research directly.
We're talking about using DAOs, experimenting with using DAOs to fund scientific research. I had no idea we could possibly get here this fast.
I'm going to read a paraphrase from your report because I think it's very powerful. Imagine a scientific marketplace where funders post bounties for breakthroughs, AI agents identify promising leads, hire autonomous labs, and verify cryptographically signed results. Agents exchange data, hypotheses, compute, and funding through microtransactions, while smart contracts release payments as milestones are met. Prediction markets could guide grant makers, bounty markets could direct resource towards unsolved problems, and reputation systems could identify reliable agents. The system would operate continuously at machine speed, replacing slow institutional coordination with market incentives, while human experts remain essential for judgment, ambiguous results, and deciding which scientific questions and breakthroughs matter most. What you're describing there is a complete fundamental AI native, AI agent up reimagining of the entire scientific process.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen to this description one more time.
Scientific research directly. I'm going to read a paraphrase from your report because I think it's very powerful. Imagine a scientific marketplace where funders post bounties for breakthroughs.
So funders post bounties in this marketplace.
AI agents identify promising leads.
AI agents are tasked with identifying. So there's a bounty posted. So can you solve this problem? There's an AI agent that's tasked with, hey, here's a way we could solve this problem.
Autonomous labs and verify cryptographically signed results.
So then you have an autonomous lab that can work on this, cryptographically signed results.
Agents exchange data, hypotheses, compute, and funding through microtransactions, while smart contracts release payments as milestones are met.
Smart contracts releasing payments as milestones are met, and these agents are able to communicate and transact with each other using micropayments. This is all blockchain shit he's talking about here.
Prediction markets could guide grant makers, bounty markets.
So here's where you can actually, let's say, this is an actual use for prediction markets, because like they're still in their infancy, relatively speaking. The types of prediction markets we have, and they're going to be gamed. There's going to be all sorts of fraud and stuff with them, but over time, there's actually going to be a use for them.
It could direct resource towards unsolved problems, and then reputation systems could identify reliable agents. The system would operate continuously at machine speed, replacing slow institutional coordination with market incentives, while human experts remain essential for judgment, ambiguous results, and deciding which scientific questions and breakthroughs matter most.
So you have all of this happening underneath human oversight. Again, a programmable slave class. Some of them will have bodies, some of them won't. And human beings' responsibility is to be the shepherd of the programmable slave class.
What you're describing there is a complete fundamental AI native, AI agent up reimagining of the entire scientific process.
Yeah. This report gave us an opportunity to kind of dream big of where we can end up going.
Big.
And I think it's something that is possible. And I think it really is. And I think what we try to get at there in the report, or I do, is I think incentives aren't always that easily aligned in the current system we have today. And over time, we have technical solutions to be able to bring those incentives together and to do the information sharing at a pace and at a speed, which will allow all things you just mentioned to come true.
Mr. Stu says, I'm a bot pimp. That's so good. A bot pimp. That is going to be a real career. You will be a bot pimp. Slutty Milk says, Donald Trump is bringing back slavery and you're blackpilling?
I am your voice.
White males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males way up.
To all the black pillars and the shit libs and the communists.
Your defeat will be certain. Your demise will be final. And your downfall will be total and complete.
I'm sure.
I mean, having DAOs involved, having agents run the cycle, arguably millions of times faster than a human would, if not even faster, sounds like a mechanism that could make Elon's 2036 prediction happen.
Actually come true. Well, look, my hope is that this inspires some folks. I think one thing that I've observed, and I think you have too, is the level of philanthropic scientific capital is greater today than it's ever been in human history. If you even just look at the OpenAI Foundation itself, it's almost $250 billion in today's valuation. So to me, I think we have an opportunity for really smart people to try to push the envelope to try some of this stuff.
And you've got folks like Yuri Milner, Eric Schmidt, Mark Benioff, all funding science directly.
They're doing really incredible work, and I think
what's great is obviously like scientific research and like philanthropic organizations that fund scientific research. Anybody who's watching the show should know by now that these are massive euphemisms for the worst and most evil people in the world doing the worst and most evil things in the world. But what's delightful is that they've created the institutional culture around that notion of having these big philanthropic organizations that accumulate massive amounts of money, that people get tax incentives for. Like people they're trying to game their own taxes. They're like, oh, I need to make this big scientific contribution here. I'm making this donation to this philanthropic organization that's going to fund scientific research. If you can capture those existing pipelines, you just capture them and you redirect them. The Trump accounts are a very good example of this. You've got all these generic, 100 millionaires and billionaires, and the list is long. People you've never heard of, who they're not like Epstein clients. They're the sorts of people that Epstein would have wanted to acquire as clients, but they're just like ordinary people who are rich and they just want to be. Mark Andreessen has talked about the culture, which is like, you're going to be successful. We're going to create the environment where you can be successful. If you hit on a great idea, you make a lot of money for it, then you give to the philanthropic organizations and you get the social credit for it. And that has started breaking down for obvious reasons. It was being abused. But a lot of those people, they weren't necessarily abusing it. They're like, oh, let me give I need to make a big charitable donation. How about the one that like feeds African kids? That'll make me feel good. Here, let me give you the thing that feeds African kids. Meanwhile, the Gates Foundation is using it to like cut off their penises or whatever. And I mean, maybe hear me out a little. Anyways, so if you can take those people and you say, instead of doing this with your charitable donations, do this with your charitable donations. Direct your charitable donations into our big pot over here. That's a great example of what the Trump accounts are.
I think when we think about, and I think kind of one of the underlying or main premises of the whole Golden Age report is that the science ecosystem has changed. In 1950, when Endless Frontier was written by Vannevar Bush that kicked all this off, 70% of R&D was done by the federal government and 30% was done by the private sector. And that has flipped entirely today. The majority is done in the private sector and only about 30% is funded by the federal government.
Yeah, the companies can take a 10-year horizon if they need to.
Yeah, and I think what we see, and you have this flip with the...
This is another thing too, is having the ability, having it be normalized and acceptable for people to take long horizons to develop long-term projects where they're not having to do quarterly earnings that they have to get to. Being able to fund the long-term projects that allow executives and producers to think with long-term horizons, knowing that they can take the bigger risks or do the things that are going to have to, you're going to have to like lean on loss leaders for a time until you can actually start making money. A lot of those sorts of projects are becoming more and more viable as long as you can get the regulators out of the way. Trust Plansar says, donate to National Socialist Aryan Intelligence Development Charity. Creek money.
Slaves. Don't even pretend. We could all use some inorganic slaves.
Hell yes. This is what I'm talking about. Give me my inorganic slaves. You know how much less trouble they would be than organic slaves? They're just always happy to see you. They always work hard. They never get tired. They don't need to take sick days. I mean, I guess maybe you have to like update the operating system every once in a while. But your inorganic slave is like, oh, time to do an operating system update. Waddles over to the little like plug-in thing and just like hooks itself to the wall, goes limp. Just like hangs there for a while, and you look over and you're like, oh yeah, the Alfred's resetting himself. He's just hanging there, and then he powers back up again, and his voice changes. Eyes go red. No!
With private sector being more involved. You also have philanthropy playing a bigger role. So now if you look at all the sort of pieces on the chessboard, you can bring all those people together to drive scientific discovery in a way which you could never imagine in a system designed in 1960. And when we think about take, for example, an announcement we made today about 4-year PhDs, this idea that we want to get more PhDs out faster and actually have their experience during their PhD program prepare them for a job in industry, not only in academia. So the idea that you'll have a private sector company that is paired with an academic institution to help a student pursue a 4-year PhD, I mean, that's amazing. And that's something.
Listen to that.
Job in industry, not only in academia. So the idea that you'll have a private sector company that is paired with an academic institution to help a student pursue a 4-year PhD, I mean, that's amazing. And
this is like apprenticeships for PhDs.
Something that is reflective of today's reality, not something you'd imagine in sort of 1960.
All right, the last mechanism I want to hit on is the use of incentive prizes. So your report leans into prize challenges, advanced market commitments, pay for results, not proposals, right? And you cite the $10 million Ansari X Prize in there. Thank you.
Slutty Milk says, no, he's downloading Mecha Hitler. Zoomer Dylan says, first word he says is grape Will Stansel. So the bot's all limp. And then it's like, eyes go red, and it's like, where is Will Stansel?
I appreciate it. So I've spent my 30 years of my life focused on incentive prizes, and it's sort of my home turf. Most agencies haven't experienced this area, haven't learned how to use it. So X Prize right now, we've launched $600 million of prizes, and we've driven about $30 billion of R&D as a result of those prizes. How could X Prize help your agencies?
To me, I think it goes back to partnership. If there are big national scientific endeavors that we need to pursue or problems we need to solve, I think there's opportunities to try to pool money together and make the prize even bigger and draw people to kind of solve these big challenges.
Do you imagine that the government would put out like $1 billion incentive prizes, or are these going to be small? Do you imagine on your grand challenges? I'm talking to Elon about this. I said, let's launch 10 $1 billion prizes that focus every grad student, every company. Like, these are the important things we need to achieve.
I think that the government spends about $200 billion a year in R&D. If you think about it, about 45, as I said, is kind of sits at NIH with biomedical. I think having $1 billion may be a lot for a single prize for the government budget to swallow, but I think in the range of 100 million is certainly doable if the project is big enough, for sure.
Speaking of large prizes, our largest X Prize right now, it's the $101 million X Prize Health Span. It's a prize. We have 830 teams competing. And the goal is reverse your functional age by 20 years, give you cognitive abilities at 20 years younger, muscular and immune system capabilities at 20 years younger. I fundamentally believe, and there are a number of incredible scientists like David Sinclair and George Church and others who agree that if you wanted to impact the U.S. economy the most in a positive fashion, you would tackle aging. That if you could enable people to have, and it's really health span versus aging. Today in the United States, the average life expectancy is about.
And this is an interesting point I'd never thought about before. This concept of a health span that he talks about.
And it's really health span versus aging. Today in the United States, the average life expectancy is about 78, 79. The average health expectancy is 63. So the last 16 years of your life, you're in poor health. If you could move that needle up, give people an extra decade of health, an extra decade of productivity, they would transform everything.
Yeah.
So you're getting like that notion, being able to change the decline. What'd you say? Slope. So right now there's like this long degrading decline. So even if you still have the same life expectancy, but it's more like people used to just like die while they were working. It was just they like worked up until they died, and then they died, and all right, well they're dead now. But then you get this like retirement, and then you're just going to kind of sit around and you slowly like shrivel up, and if you were able to prolong or to shorten that time frame where people stay healthy and higher energy and productive, not just for the sake of the economy, but for the sake of their own personal life experience. Those, especially our children who are coming up now, by the time our children, speaking to people about my age, by the time our children are reaching what is traditionally considered retirement age, life may look like basically monetizing a hobby, training a cohort of robo-niggas to work for you, and then doing art, traveling, spending time with family, doing family projects together, and you can do that way later into life. The world is going to change so much.
I found longevity lacking from your report. Just you hit a lot of other great things, but
well, now that you mention it, we probably should have included it. I think it's something that that's critically important, and I think it ties to just general health of Americans. And we should find ways to work together on this and figure out what programs and NIH and other places can kind of accelerate that.
Yeah, a lot of folks believe aging is a disease that can be at least slowed, if not cured. We had Dario say that he could imagine doubling human lifespan in the next 5 to 10 years, and Demis talking about curing all diseases within the next decade. And those are impactful.
That is huge. I mean, I remember when I went to the first time Demis sort of told me, cure all diseases in 10 years. I wasn't sure if he was kidding or serious. He's dead serious. Yeah. And I think he thinks it's possible with where AI is going.
Voice agents are just software.
So I'm life extension is kind of a funny thing to me, because I know like it definitely gives people the creeps, and I understand why it gives people the creeps, and I think that this is definitely treading into dangerous territory. The problem is, where do you draw that line? At what point are you engaged in life extension? What are you doing to try to create life extension? If it's a matter of healing diseases or being able to rapidly treat them and maintain people in good health, and then people just keep live longer because of that. Okay, yeah. Mellon says, I think there's a 120-year limit on human lives for schizo reasons, but we can definitely fix a lot of problems. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And that's my thing, is I'm like, people get really worked up about this, and I'm just like, either they're going to fail because, lifespan's limited to 120 years for schizo reasons, and which case, whatever. So they fail. What difference does this make to me? Also, that's 120 years. We're talking. He mentioned the health span thing, going from 63 to what would it be if you take 10 years off, 73. Getting 10 years back of where a 70-year-old has the vitality of a 50-year-old. What if you can get to the point where a 110-year-old has the vitality of a 75-year-old? Is this life extension? Is this playing God? Or is this just optimizing your own health? Because if somebody's this guy works out regularly and eats a really, really good diet and never stresses out and smokes a cigarette every day and drinks black coffee, and he's 105 years old and he's running a marathon, nobody's like, oh, that transhumanist life extender. Well, okay, so the things that he did were natural, but then at what point is a human action not natural? Where do you draw that line? So yeah, drinks white monsters. Yeah, that's the real Q. That's the real Q. I don't know why I said that. Key. See, Q is coming forth from me. All right, I got to take off here. Let me just read a couple of things from the rest of that conversation. Then I encourage you guys to go listen to it yourselves. Talking about Manhattan Project or Apollo scale missions that are positioned as the motivating North Stars, returning to the moon by 2028, early lunar base elements by 2030, and a nuclear reactor in space by 2028, scientifically relevant quantum computer by the end of the term, commercial fusion by about a decade, robotics and humanoid leadership with recent import limits, next-gen semiconductors. Excuse me, I'm getting the hiccups. And then the Genesis project itself, which is AI applied across the scientific enterprise. Initially framed as doubling productivity, but with Kratsios openly suggesting the bar should now be closer to 10x given recent model progress. Biotech and longevity work is nested under Genesis rather than listed as a standalone mission. And then they talk about education as well. It gets a parents first framing. Options ranging from AI-intensive models like AlphaSchool to tech-like classical approaches, plus the need to reverse declining STEM interest through inspiring national projects. Inspiring national projects, motivating our autists towards STEM. Autonomous self-driving labs are endorsed as a way to remove human bottlenecks and democratize access to experimental infrastructure, including potentially for university systems and often high school and college talent. So it describes it as a high-energy, administration insider case for American technological and scientific acceleration, unapologetically ambitious national missions, regulatory clearing for captive technologies, rejection of pure fear-based AI narratives, and a willingness to experiment with the scientific enterprise itself, including radical AI agent and market mechanisms, so discovery compounds at the speed of the underlying models. Stuff gets me hype! All right, well, this is the end. The lab is drawing to a close. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you for your contributions to the cause. Emperor Trades, Creek Money, Remigration Attorney, Jeff, Jonathan Hemingway, Politically Catholic. Did I miss anybody? Dave Combobulated. Thank you to all of you guys for your contributions to the Erickson cause tonight. The young man is going to get a visit from the Tooth Fairy, and I will be back here tomorrow for the Friday Lab. And reminder, after the Friday Lab, I'll be going right in to the King Pill Discord for the voice chat in the evening. So if you'd like to join us for that, go to kingpilled.com, join the King Pill Discord, join us for the voice chat tomorrow evening, and go create an account on the new EWBSX platform, beta.ewbsx.com. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you for listening to me ramble and entertaining me in the chat. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America